Good morning. How's everybody doing? If you could do me a favor and start taking your seats. My ADD is freaking out because it's 8 o'clock and we're not starting. So we'll start at about 8:05. Sit your butts down.
She'll expose you when she snows you. Off your feet with the crumbs she throws you. She's ferocious.
Please start meandering to your seats. We're going to get started in 4 minutes.
Slide controller, or do you want to stand up?
Good morning. Let's do that again. That was fun. Good morning. You guys are awesome. All right, so let me just do some housekeeping, and then we will get started with the day, because I do like to start on time, and I am freaking out because we're 5 minutes late. Just so you know where the restrooms are, if you are on the lower floor, they're down that hallway, and if you're on the upper floor, down that hallway, okay? At lunch, VIPs will be again down that hallway past the restrooms. General admission will be out the back door. There will be signs to a bigger spot. It was a little crammed last year, so we opened up a bigger spot, okay? Lunch, dinners, lunch, they will all be back there. Second, turn your badges to the back. Do you have a blue raffle ticket? I'm going to be giving some stuff away today, So we will be calling on folks from that, but in fairness, we'll wait until all the tickets are given away. So that'll be in a couple of hours. Second, where you are seated should be one of these. Okay? There's a little white tab that you need to pull out so the battery is connecting. And then if you want, you just can turn on the switch. What is this to me? I wanted to give something that you could all take home with you that is a memory of today. So this says Everyday Wealth Building, one rental at a time, 2026. So everybody should have one of these. And if you don't, I might have 10 more in the back that we could give them to you. I would really love, especially during the awards, there's going to be some people that don't know they're getting awards. I really would want them to feel the love. So if you want to celebrate every presentation with these, great. But the award ceremony was my vision. So we get 6, 7, 8 people who give to this community and don't know it. So that was the intent for these, but frankly, they're at your chairs, go nuts. Okay? Dion, if you're working with Dion to do these 10 questions that you heard me talk about in the Daily Financial News, he has the room in the very back corner, upstairs, in the very back corner. I'm sure he would be tapping some of you on the shoulder. Matt, the Lumberjack landlord, is running the podcast room, which is a full multi-camera, multi-mic setup. If you have someone that you want to interview, if you have content or a YouTube channel, work with Matt to get something scheduled. That's a $12,000 room. So if somebody's not in there every second of the day, I'm going to be pissed off, right? That's a very expensive room. So let's make sure you guys are getting value out of this. Second, let's get started with the content. When I create events like this, it is all about you, the audience. So a couple of rules of thumb if this is your first session. Every speaker will take questions. All of them have roughly 45 minutes. They've all been instructed to produce 30 minutes of content and then take 15 minutes of questions. Some of you hopefully came with questions for certain speakers. Here's the deal. They're probably not going to be able to answer all the questions. So, for example, if you wanted to ask Cody Davis questions, who is our first speaker and will be up in a minute, I would get in line by that microphone over there. That's where the questions will come from. Second, we have a lot of people in our school community on Zoom. So I'm going to do my best to remember to take one question from the Zoom community, just again because I want to support the people that are spending Valentine's Day staring at a computer versus networking with all of you amazing people. I could not imagine doing this on Zoom. Thank you for the folks that are there, but hopefully we'll see you guys next year. So does that all make sense? All right, let's get the party started. Mr. Cody Davis is now up first.
Okay, am I using this one or this one? There we go. All right. Hey everybody, good morning. I'm excited to be here. And this is the very first photo I ever took with Mr. Michael Zuber. This was 3 years ago? 4 years ago. So today's topic is going to be about taking the next step. Originally, I wanted to share taking the first step, getting started. But I realized most of you here will have already done that. Taking the next step is going to depend on what you've already done, where you're coming from. Everybody's pieces are a little bit different, and everybody has room to learn. I want to share a little fun story. When I met Zuber, I thought I knew everything. And after I met Zuber, I realized I knew nothing. He taught me a lot. He really began my journey of self-development. He's probably done that for a lot of you. And so I actually texted him, wherever he is. I texted him about a month ago. And I said, I had a dream about you, and I need to share it at the event. So that's what I'm going to do. Well, in this dream, I was probably 10 years old, which kind of weird, but I envisioned what he would have looked like when I was 10 years old. And he was my soccer coach. For those who don't know, I also had a coach, Michael, as a soccer coach. It just happened to be Michael Zuber. And I had a question as a young soccer player, which I played soccer for 11 years. It was one of my passion projects. I said, when do I know when to dribble or when to pass. He said it depends on where you're out in the field. And that relates directly to today's topic, because what I do or what you do might be different than the person next to you. Everybody's got different pieces. Whether you pass the ball or dribble it forward depends on where you're at. And with that, I'd like to start out with a little bit of my history. So I started out at 19 years old. I was a college dropout. I wasn't exactly a scholar. However, I was wandering my way through life. I was doing things based on what seemed like the next logical step. And when I didn't have a next logical step, I just kept wandering around until I found what ended up being the next logical step. Didn't have anybody in real estate, wasn't part of a community like this. I was just figuring things out as I went. I wanted to work at, I was working at the YMCA, local Morgan family over in Tacoma, Washington, for any of the Washington State folks here. I got a job at Safeway, which I worked for about 7 minutes before I walked out of the intro training. And I was doing odd jobs for family friends. Eventually, someone invited me into an online group. It was for real estate investors in Washington State. It's because I was pressure washing their house. They said, you know what, if you're going to do all this work, there's a lot of flippers in this group, you can learn. And that was my real intro into a community. Before one rental at a time, show of hands, was anybody, like, is this your first community for anybody? All right, well, we found a great starter group. That group got me going in the right direction, but it didn't give me a whole lot of guidance. I ended up meeting with the real estate owner, and he told me, hey, get your real estate license, you'll make a bunch of money. Fast forward a few months, I made no money. And so I was like 99% of all real estate agents. Ended up reading some books, started studying. There was a deal that popped up for someone else's client. They ended up putting it was like 24 units under contract. It was zero money down, seller financed. And I didn't know anything about this at the time, but I did a whole discovery journey, did a lot of research, and I ended up buying what any 19-year-old would buy rationally at that age. I bought a 12-plex, zero down, scaled it to buy a couple hundred more units, realized bigger is not better. When I met Zuber, if you go back to that first photo, this guy taught me a lot about a lot. And he helped me realize better is better, bigger is not better. So that started my journey into where we are today. Now, enough on my journey. Let's talk about your journey. Does everybody here recognize that this is going to be a decade? We're all good there? This doesn't happen tomorrow. This is going to take 10 years. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be a lot of work. This is me at my 15 unit when the sewer line that, of course, couldn't go out went out. And it had been working for 100 years prior. And then the month after I bought it, it decided to fail. So tell me how that works. It had been through so many different owners, and I was the special one. So you're going to have difficulties. There's going to be trials. There's going to be difficult things you're going to have to solve for. However, even though it does take a decade, it is very simple. It's repeatable. It works. When things get very difficult, though, it's really important to know, why am I here? What am I doing this for? In the beginning, I wanted to do it to better set myself up to help my family. Specifically, I wanted to help take care of my mom. Something that you need to identify as you're going through this journey, if you don't have a good reason for what you're doing, you're going to have something like this happen on property 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever number you're on, and it's going to knock you out because it's emotionally taxing. So for everybody here, a step that you can do is identify, what do you really want? Not what you think other people want, but what is it that I want to do? This is my lovely wife. She's right here, Ashley. We met about 4.5 years ago. She's amazing. And she was in real estate before we met. She's been crushing it in her own sense. What you want today may not be what you want in 5 years. When I was getting started, so I'm about 7 years into my decade-long journey, 70% of the way there. In the beginning, I just wanted to get ahead. I like fast cars, and so I was like, I can't make enough money to go buy a nice, fast car, so real estate could be an option. And I wanted to help out with my mom because she was very inspirational for me growing up. Now that I've built a little bit of a base and I can start to help out the people in my family, what do I really want? I kept building this big, convoluted, crazy business. Zuber will tell you, like you could touch it, blow on it, it would fall over. This is something that we had discussed a few years ago in person when we first ended up meeting up. I identified after I had built this big, crazy business that what I really want is I want to be able to have a family. I want to be able to go home at night, not be stressed out when I'm going to bed. And I don't want my family to be stressed out by this big, crazy business that I built. Has anybody here ever thought they wanted something and realized they're getting closer and it's like, oh, that doesn't matter to me? Yeah, I'm a victim of that. I did it to myself. I built this crazy business because I thought it was cool. Unit count's cool. Being able to show people what you've done is cool. But the best feeling I've ever had is being able to provide security for the people that I love. And so that may not be what it is for you, but I'd encourage everybody today, after you shake as many hands as you can, you go home, and if you don't do it today, write it down exactly what you want. Because most people have an idea what they want, but they don't truly know. They haven't mapped it out. They have not spent the time to figure out what would make me happiest if I could just do this. That was my bank account 5 years ago, and well, so that was 5 years ago. I'm 7 years into the journey, so if that says anything, I had 24 apartments at that point in time. Not good. But it was what I had. So you have to invest with what you have. You have to use the pieces that you have available to you. It would be very ideal to say, well, just to get financial freedom, I'm going to need 5 properties, and this is my buy box. And all I had to do is just borrow against this to buy that. If you don't have those pieces, then you're just going to be spinning your tires, wasting time. It is so important to just map out, what do I have? Because everybody's journey is different. Did anybody here start from a real estate family? Okay, we got a couple people that started from a real estate family. So that just means that they came from a different background than everybody else. Doesn't necessarily help them, doesn't hurt them. Does anybody here do flips or has done flips? Okay, what about long-term buy and hold? Who here's never bought a property? All right. Anybody have a college degree? Anybody not? We're all different. And to say that, well, I'd love to have what they have, but I don't have what they had when they started, that would be unfair to yourself. So as you're navigating towards wherever you want to go, I'd recommend write down what you do have going for you, and then let's play with that. And another piece, I got this from a podcast that Michael just was on, and there was a gentleman on there that he didn't stick with something for a long enough period of time. When you pick your strategy, stick with it for at least 5 years. It's a 10-year journey, but if you go from flips to buy and hold to mobile home park to RV park, it's going to be very hard to learn lessons. And since this is a long-term thing, it's very, very important you stick with it. At least 5 years. You're going to learn your lessons. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, then we can adjust. But what you don't want to do is keep starting over this 10-year journey. Has anybody done that, where they went for a little bit? Okay, good. We're in the right room. So this is the very first property that I ever bought. And it was a 12-plex, Quincy, Washington. Has anybody heard of it? I hadn't either when I bought there. Nobody had heard of it. My mentor at the time had said, what the heck is a Quincy? It's literally middle of nowhere, Washington State. So I had to drive 3 hours to get there. But the topic of this is the final step is similar to your first. For those who have bought your first rental or you're trying to buy your last, the steps are pretty much the same. Out of the room, what percentage of people do you think know their buy box? Anybody have any ideas? Feel free to throw it out. 10? 40? All right, if you know your buy box, raise your hand. All right, so maybe half, 50%. If you don't know your buy box, Let's figure it out, because that's going to be part of your first steps. And when you get to your last steps, it doesn't make sense to change your buy box. You keep doing the actions until you get to the end result. It's a very simple business. It can get very boring, very simplistic. But once you map that out, you know exactly what you want. Keep doing the same steps until you get there. Another piece here, this is very simple, but it's true. You have to start. If you want to play the game, you got to start playing the game. I know countless people that from the very beginning of my journey, and I started back in around 2019, so it's been going on 7 years, they're doing the same things today as they were back then. And they didn't even define their buy box over 7 years. Can anybody here imagine I didn't write down what I want to buy in 7 years? It's just the first step. So if you haven't done that yet, my recommendation, if you want to go light years ahead of the people that I know that haven't done anything in the last half decade plus, just write down what your ideal portfolio would look like. Because if you don't know, you're just going to go through the day, you're going to wonder, well, it's nice that they did it, but I can't. It is just that simple. Does anybody here, their buy box is single family, duplex, triplex, fourplex? What about apartments? RV park? At least you know, right? If you don't know, this game is going to be very difficult. It's already going to take a decade. So to make it as easy as possible, if you have notes right now, write down exactly what your buy box is. Even if you know, if you don't know, then write down ideas. All right. Why most people stay stuck. It's on that piece I just mentioned. It's the lack of clarity. It can also be the lack of clarity on what to do or what you want. When I was scaling, before I met Zuber, bigger was better. I kept buying more and more. For context, I bought about 250 rentals, a couple motels, bought a hotel, bought an RV park, all in the course of about 4 years with $3,000. That was a mistake. I kept on growing and growing and growing. I didn't have clarity on what the end looked like. And so I kept buying things because I could when I didn't have to. You can have a lack of clarity on what you want. You can have a lack of clarity on what you have to do. And you have to identify which one it is for you. Because if you don't know what to do, you're going to be stuck. That's the bottom line. You're not going to be able to progress in business. If you have a lack of clarity on what you want, you're going to end up making mistakes just because you're doing things you think you have to and you don't. A lot of us could buy 4 properties, wait a decade, and walk away from our job. It could be that simple. But if you don't know exactly what you want, if you think, well, it'd be nice to have 30 grand a month or 5 grand a month or 20, but you don't really decide, all of a sudden you're going to be in a position where you buy things you wouldn't have bought if you knew exactly what you wanted. Or you're going to not buy things because you're scared. You have to know what you want and what you want to do. And when it comes down to what do we do, you map out your buy box, you map out where we're at today, where do we want to go, and what do we have to buy to get there? Can anybody share some goals of what they would like perfect retirement? Anybody have an idea? You got one? Okay, so 20 doors, $2,500 a month per unit rent. You net half of that, so you get to $25,000 a month. Okay, so if we're trying to get to $25,000 a month versus $3,000 a month, we're gonna have to build a different business. It's gonna help us stay disciplined. We're gonna be very clear on what we have to build. To get to that, we're probably not buying C-class apartments. That narrows our buy box down. We're probably buying B+, A-, and you're gonna be in a core market because you're not in Quincy, Washington, where the rents are $1,000. It's gonna help you narrow down your buy box, give you clarity on what you have to do, and the next steps that you're gonna have to take. In the beginning, a lot of people set the number of $10,000 a month. That could be 4 properties. If you're doing quadplexes, you only need 5 properties. So it will help you clarify exactly what you have to buy, make it very simple. And simple is repeatable, scalable, and the least amount of stress. Now, talking about opportunity, this is a duplex that I bought in Moses Lake. Moses Lake's about dead center between Seattle and Spokane. Your opportunities are going to appear after you take the action of writing down what do we got to do, getting crystal clear on your targets. What's your buy box? Is it realistic to do what you want to do in your market? I've met some very ambitious people that want to get to $100,000 a month in a little place called Soap Lake. If you haven't heard of Quincy or Moses Lake, you probably haven't heard of Soap Lake. Soap Lake's got like 400 people living there. They can be super ambitious, but they haven't identified, is it a real opportunity? They haven't done the steps, done the due diligence. So as you start mapping these out, opportunities will appear. What you don't want to do is go 5 years down the road after this, get super hyped up today, and not take the actual steps to get there. 90+% of my opportunities appeared within 2 years after I bought my first deal. I don't know if anybody else has seen that, where you buy your first deal and then instantly you find another. It just becomes clear. It's like when you buy a Mazda, you start seeing Mazdas. It doesn't matter what car you buy, you start seeing more of them. Well, you buy a property, you start seeing more properties. But you still got to do the legwork. You got to take the action to get the first one. When Zuber says get to 4, after you get the first one, the following 3 are so much more simple. They're so much easier. There's a lot of ambiguity in the contracts, and what do I do? How do I close it? But you get through the first one with the help of a community like this. The second one will appear much more quickly than the last. Now, talking about biggest mistakes, I didn't buy that, by the way. Rented it, got it out of my system. But a lot of my buddies, they make a mistake kind of like that. I have some buddies back in Tennessee where I used to live with my wife, and they were buying the fancy cars when they had like 2 rentals, and they were paying for the payment with their flip profits. That might be a mistake. So biggest mistakes to avoid: false expectations. Everybody here acknowledge that this is going to take a decade. There are people online saying that you can go buy big apartment buildings and you can retire in 90 days, and that's not real. So you need to make sure your expectations are accurate. It's going to take a decade. It's going to be a lot of hard work, as you saw. Sewer line will probably go out the day after you buy it. When I bought the hotel, the furnace decided to burn part of the building down the day after I bought it. Called the seller. They said, that's impossible. It's been working for the last 2 decades. So things are going to happen. You have to expect that that's a reality. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of difficult times to get through, and it will legitimately take you a long time. I thought that I could retire much faster. I thought I was going to be able to do it in a couple of years because I was buying stuff zero down. And it's just not a reality. It takes time no matter what you're doing. There's not really a quicker path that I've found or anybody else that I've found. Comparison to others. Comparison is the thief of joy. That will absolutely tank you in business, because you're going to be doing what you're doing. You may be buying your duplexes or your single-family rentals. You see someone do an apartment. You switch models, and then you neglect what got you to where you're at right now. The single family start to go down, or the duplex start to go down, or you get a big loss on the apartments. That was a big issue for me. I was doing apartments over and over and over. I saw what other people were doing, and then I went and bought a resort. Shout out to Dion. Dion pointed that to me. And that was one of my biggest learning lessons. It taught me about this slide. Deviating from what you've been doing will kill your 10-year journey. It could make your 10-year journey a 15-year journey, a 20-year journey. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to go backwards half a decade. No matter when you're starting. You could start at 15 years old. I met someone that was 15 today, someone that's 19 that are here. Shout out to them. I mean, being here at that age, huge, but that could be the difference of starting at 20 and 25. Half a decade's a lot of time. And it'll go by quickly, but don't do it to yourself if you don't have to. So stick with your strategy. Comparison is the thief of joy. And having a lack of patience is going to be a big part of that. If you don't have the patience to buy and hold, this is going to be a hard journey. It will absolutely be tough. When you get the rent every month, maybe you got $1,800 in, $1,400 going out, but that's $400 a month you're getting paid to wait. It's going to take you a long time to get to financial freedom. Switching strategies is also going to be the largest probably the largest mistake, not sticking through it. Earlier I talked about 5 years. We got to stick with it for 5 years. And please don't buy the fancy car before you can afford it. So you get to pivot and learn, don't exit. I built a business, a lot of apartments relatively quickly. They were all Class C. I bought some Class F. Also a mistake, don't do that. Bad idea. If you get shot, then your wealth doesn't do anything. So pivot and learn, but don't exit. Rather than quitting, I've met some people that they did that and then they quit the real estate game, rather than just pivoting and learning from their lessons. It's not going to be perfect. Nothing's going to go exactly how you want it to go. I've made mistakes, way more than I could probably count. But rather than just exiting and taking some money and going and doing something like stocks or trading or whatever else strategies there are out there, I sold some old stuff and I bought some new stuff. And I did it the same way I got started. Rather than seller financing old buildings, I seller financed new buildings. So this is a 7-unit I bought, also in Moses Lake. I didn't change my market, I just changed my buy box. It's a 7-unit, it was built in 2021. Seller finance, 7% down, and it cash flows a couple thousand a month. I ended up 1031ing an old property to buy this. One of the largest mistakes I've ever seen is just exiting the game. If you stay in real estate for a long time, I think we'd all agree you're going to make money. But you don't have to stick with what you've done. If you got in and you made a mistake, pivot. You can change. You can go from apartments to single family. Zuber, this is something that stuck with me that I do think about on occasion, but 20 brand new paid off houses. He could pivot rather than exit and just own his ideal portfolio. Whatever you built to get to where you're at, it's not necessarily what's going to take you to where you want to go. So it's really important that you can make that pivot when the time comes. And that's a photo of me. I'm just now seeing that on the TV. So that was in my Robin Hood getup. The reason I put that in there, I bought the Robin Hood Village Resort in Washington State, and so I was going to put that photo on a billboard. Glad I didn't. For those of you that almost saw that in Fife, you're welcome. I didn't put it up there. But rather than just exiting completely, I pivoted, I got out of it, I moved on, and I took my lessons so that I don't make the same mistake moving forward. You got to play the game if you want to play the game, and mistakes are going to come with it. So your next steps. This is a triplex that I bought. You need to identify exactly what it is you want. That's, at the end of the day, that's going to be one of the biggest pieces that you have to do and take away from today. What exactly do you want? If you don't know what you want, you're going to build a business that's going to get you what someone else's dream is. If you just want time with your family, with your friends, then great, you don't need to go buy the big house or the nice car. If you just truly want your time back, you're going to have to take different steps than someone who wants some of the nicer luxuries of life. You truly don't have to build that business. Figure out exactly what you want. For myself, my wife, we want to have 3 kids. We want to have a house near our family. And so we have tailor-fit a portfolio now where we're shifting, where we can do that. We don't need any more. We don't need any less. I got that from Dion. Dion taught me that you can get the most from just the right amount of units. And so we're doing that right now so we can hit our goals. For your goals, you can't hit them if you don't know them. So map them out. Then you have to map out the strategy to get there. Because if you do want to get to 20 grand a month, you're going to build a different business than if you want 5 or 50. And after that, stay the course and enjoy the journey. It's just about that simple. And I'd like to say a big thank you to Michael and Olivia for putting this on and having me open.
Well done, Cody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Remember, folks, we are taking questions. I cannot believe nobody's lined up to talk to Cody already. We do have one question from the Zoom, which I'm going to read and give you back the mic real quick. This is from Trade Better. With the teacher that gave you the advice to get started in your real estate investing journey, what would you say to young teenagers that are now planning their future? And again, folks, if you are a teenager in the room, it is my goal that you get in the podcast room with both Cody and Dylan, who's going to kick us off tomorrow, because this event is for you. I can't accomplish my goal of helping the next generation without you. So please be involved. Please ask questions. And you remember the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I share with 19-year-olds.
Yeah, what did you say?
With 19-year-olds, I wouldn't get advice from your friends, for one, because my friends didn't give very good advice. So that would be the first thing. And outside of the materialistic things, so forget the cars right now, forget the nice house, what is it that you would actually want if you could buy anything you want? Because eventually, if you play this game, you're going to have enough money to buy whatever you want. So get all that out of the way. What is it you want to do? What is it you'd like to do with your time? When I got started, even though I wanted to go make a bunch of money and drive a nice car and help my mom and eventually meet my wife, I did that part, there's a lot of things that I wanted to do. Something I said I wanted to do beyond the money was coach gymnastics, coach the youth, help them shape their mindset on overcoming difficult things. Because gymnastics is a tough sport. I did it for a long time. It's difficult. It can be mentally taxing, physically taxing. I wanted to continue to do that. And so today, I'm still doing that. I coach a youth program over in Moses Lake. My advice for 19-year-olds is figure out what's the equivalent of the gymnastics for you. What is the thing you would do if money didn't matter? After all, you buy all the nice things you could ever want to buy. What would you do with your time? That's going to help you. It's going to take time, but that's going to help you craft what kind of business you build, if you build one at all, like what you want to do. Because if you just want to be able to give back and be part of some charitable programs, or you want to go travel the world, you're going to ultimately build a simpler business than if you're just aiming and wandering aimlessly, I should say. You're just doing the next thing without a target. That was my biggest mistake.
All right, let's get a couple questions. Go ahead. Stop.
Hey, Cody, thanks for being here today, man. Love your story. And so here's my question. With regards to lead sources, who's your target seller that you were looking for? Can you speak on where you found that ideal seller that fit your buy box? And then can you also share the financing behind that ideal buy box?
Yeah, so sounds good. Yeah. So I don't view people as sellers, I view them as owners. The way I built my strategy is I would call people and learn how they built their business. I wasn't looking for them to sell me stuff. I was looking for them to help me grow personally. So they're an owner, not a seller. And as far as the actual financing goes, typically I would do a seller financed first mortgage and a hard money second. And we can talk about that later, but basically the seller would finance the big portion of the purchase price, and then I'd get a really high interest rate loan for the down payment. And I would make sure that the first mortgage with the seller was cheap enough so that even though I was paying maybe 12% on the down payment, I'd still have cash flow.
Love it. Thank you.
Great job, man. Hey, so for kids, I've got young kids. I also have a daughter that's 22. From a young person, or even if you look back over 7 years ago, 8 years ago, as a parent, how do I kind of plant the seeds with them from your point of view? Plant the seeds, but not be pushy about it, and show them, hey, everyday wealth builders, this is possible for you, but also not be, like drilling it into them. So just your thoughts and how you came up.
It's important to have them come to their own conclusion. So I'll give you an example, and then I'll give you an exact example for yourself. In gymnastics class, I'll have two kids that'll butt heads, and they want me to give them the solution. And so rather than telling them what to do, I say, what are you going to do about it? So when you're talking with your kids, what I'd recommend you do is ask them, what do you want to do after high school? And don't take I don't know as an answer. They could say they want to travel, they want to explore a little bit before college, maybe they want to go to college. How do you plan to do that? Get them to give you the answer. It's like, well, I'd love to travel. Do you know how much it costs? No? Well, you should map it out. and get them to start doing the legwork and realize that life costs money and it's going to take time. And if you can mention that you're in real estate and that if they ever have interest in that, they can ask you about it. But that's giving you time to go do those things.
Thank you. All right, let's do two more.
Hey, Cody, this is Joel Farrell. I bought my first house in 2009 at the age of 26, and now the age of first-time home buyers is average of 39. And when I bought my first rental was in 2013, I had no idea what I was doing. I just did it, turned the old one into a rental. Now there's so much more data and information and guidance out there than there was 10 years ago. So my question to you is, what's stopping more 25, 28-year-olds from going down this path? In your circle, people seeing you succeed in this world, are they coming to you and asking you questions? Are people rubbing off of you and getting down this real estate world? Like, what's your perspective on the 25-year-olds?
Not a lot of them are trying. So there's more information today than there used to be, but there's more competition because of that. So it feels impossible. If you go back a couple decades, when I was 4, so you go back a little bit of time, there was a lot less talk about this. There were still the groups and the circles that were doing it, but there was a lot less people actually out there trying to raise money, putting deals together. Now that it's popular, there's more competition, so even though everybody knows about it, it feels impossible. But it's not. And groups like this make it feel possible.
Cool.
Man, Chester.
All right. Thanks for coming again, Cody. Definitely appreciate it. So one of the things that you were talking about in terms of both clarity and patience, can you talk about the relationship of how to switch from that linear sort of thinking of what goes in, if you put X amount of effort in, you get X amount out, how to switch from that type of thinking to more like exponential thinking where it'll take that, 4 or 5 years before you start to see any sort of real returns, because I think that's like the relationship between, not only having that clarity and focus of like, here's what I want to see at the end of that decade, but then having that patience to be able to, quote unquote, see it through.
Something that my wife and I have talked about a lot is, does this move us closer or further away from our goals? So to your point, yeah, you're not going to see a whole lot of progress right away. It's not going to happen. I didn't pay myself regular distributions. I just let it stack in the account, but I didn't pay myself on my first deal for 5 years. That sucks. I was reinvesting everything. But every time I'd reinvest, I added a unit, turned it from a 12-plex to a 13 unit. I did all brand new electrical panels. Even though I'm not getting a return right now, the question of, does this move me closer to my goals or further away? Because time's going to keep marching on, and you're not going to stay in the same spot. Right? Because you're getting a little bit older every day. And so you're getting closer to the end, but if you're not moving forward, that means you're moving backwards. So I would just quantify it as that rather than am I seeing linear progress? Because this is not a linear game.
Right. Okay. Definitely appreciate it, man.
How was that for the first presentation? Yay. Thank you. That's why I bought those damn white things. Just shake them in the air. Come on. All right, so Cody, thank you very much. Here's your championship belt. Your lovely wife is on there with you. Wow. Yeah, so hold on. So in the room, there's probably 20 people that have already earned a belt. I asked everybody to bring theirs if they got one. So take some pictures, post them on Instagram, tag me, do all that stuff. Let's just celebrate people who've really given this community. And you definitely have to earn one of these. And Cody, thank you very much, brother. All right, nice job. Can you use that? No, that's mine. All right. Remember I told you earlier we have raffles because I'm going to give away some free stuff? We're going to test this. So turn your badge around. And we're going to give away one of my white hoodies that's one of 99. And I have medium, large, and extra large. If you don't want one of those, pass. Give it to someone else. Here we go. So 27911. Probably most of you. I'm just guessing. Y'all feel like I'm lucky, right? 214. Come on up. What do you want? Large? Large, extra large, medium? Oh, you're a medium. Large? All right, here we go. All right. Of course. Thank you. Oh, that's flip hacking. Yeah, I remember that with Bill Allen. All right, very, very cool, folks. So we're going to keep it going. We will have a break after this presentation, but something I knew I had to do, putting on a real estate conference in 2026, was bring up somebody in our community that is doing the hottest, sexiest, most talked about part of real estate investing today. That said, I needed to have somebody that I trust, because there's lots of downsides and there's lots of charlatans and pretenders and people that will end up stealing your money. And of course, I'm talking about co-living, and that means in our community there's only one guy doing it right that I follow, and that's Jared. Jared, you're up, man.
Howdy. So I'm not young, I'm 51. I started when I was 49. So I'm Jared Oschenbein. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. Oh, I like to see all the spouses. There's a lot of spouses. My spouse is in the audience. Love you, babe. Happy Valentine's Day. Bet this wasn't what she expected, right? So, I'm going to try to work this sideways here. So, oh, get away from the speakers. All right. Well, do like this. So, I started at 49. I was in corporate for, I'm going to go off script. I can't, it's not going to work. So, I started at 49, and, well, I had notes and stuff, but it's gonna echo, so it's fine. Oh, yeah. So, anyway, so I've been at this for just 2.5 years, so I'm pretty new. But I was in corporate for 23 years, and I came home one day. This was in April, by the way, of 2023. I was really upset with taxes. I'm in Oregon, I was upset with taxes. So I came home one day, and I told the wife, I was like, look, I'm going to quit my job and go do real estate. And she gave me a look. She didn't say anything. Oh, awesome. She didn't say anything, but she gave me a look. She didn't, you guys are married for a while. You don't have to speak. She gave me that look like, are you out of your effing mind, right? She's a stay-at-home mom of 3, and so I was the only income earner. And I can never forget that look. But thanks, Saber. Cool. I don't know if the mouse is going to work. We're going to have to wing this, guys, so I apologize. And I need glasses, too, because like I said, I'm older. 4. All right. So anyway, what we have now is after 2.5 years, we've got 4 houses with 32 units. And they're single-family homes. And so, as Zuber said, I rent by room. So we take large, 2,000 square foot, no HOA, no pool, 2.5 bath. The half bath is important because I'll tell you in a second what my market is, Arizona. A little closer? Okay. I didn't want it to echo. My buy box, 2,000, if anybody, wholesalers out there, Arizona, Phoenix Metro, 2,000 square foot, 2.5 bath, the half bath is important, or better, no HOA, no pool. And the no pool is because of that lovely man right there, Mark Kohler, he's my lawyer. So these guys are, I heard Dion say once that he was on Bigger Pockets, and he said, Bigger Pockets, he's the product of Bigger Pockets. Well, I'm the product of everybody up here. And yes, Pace is there, I'm in sub 2 also, so I know Ty is as well, but all these guys basically built me over the last 2.5 years, and I love this community. So I was actually here, this is my 3rd time here, and Coach Carson said something to me. So Dion, Matt, Zuber, everybody told me, hey, you need to slow down, because when I should back up a little bit and talk about how so when I left Intel, I wanted access to my 401k, and when I called Fidelity and said, hey, I want this, they said, you can't have it unless you quit. I'm like, all right, so I quit. But my wife just was like, what? But 23 years in corporate, and I left for a year, but I did have a plan to go back, sort of. So anyway, I got access to the funds and everything, but we didn't have any income coming in. So I decided to sell all my toys. I was really big into off-roading, right? Like big time. I had 500 horsepower Jeep and Denali and toy hauler and all that stuff. So, but once I sold that, I learned something, and this is what I wanted to give to the community if you have a spouse that's maybe not on board. I didn't know this was a total accident. So I sold all that stuff and for the income to basically either buy the first house or survive that first year, whatever you want to call it. And when I did that, my wife, she realized I wasn't messing around. because I'd done some stuff. I've been flipping trailers on the side for like 15 years, for fun to pay for vacations. We should have been investing it, late bloomer, but and all that kind of stuff. So she kind of knew I did weird stuff. Did powder coating for a while, just trying to earn extra income. So a little bit of an entrepreneurial, but not really. Basically a W-2 guy. I should have got some water. Anyway, so sold all that stuff, and when I did that, she was on board. It just, oh, thank you. Look at the giving. So as soon as I did that, she realized I wasn't messing around. So for those of you that have spouses that may not be on board, you might think about giving up some time-consuming activities, or especially if they're expensive. So that worked for me. Thank you. Watch me kick that over. So my history, I wasn't raised around real estate. My dad was a retired Army security guard. My mom was a hairdresser, so we didn't have a lot of money. When I was younger, we actually lost the house. And my dad had lupus, so we lived in Arizona, believe it or not, and that's not why I invested in Arizona, but I'll get to that in a second. So we had to leave the sun and go to Oregon, right? So that's the, So did all that, but I didn't know anybody that invested, didn't know anything about real estate. But when I was younger, I was told, go to school, get a good job. Well, I didn't have money to go to college to get that good job, so I joined the Army. Joined the Army, got out, worked for a year at a IT tech company, and then got on at Intel as a help desk. Worked my way up to mid-level manager and was doing great. But every time I got a raise and got promoted and this and that, the more I made, the more I paid, right? And I was getting more and more upset, and it was building and building and building. And so I'm here because of taxes. I mean, I know a lot of people start that way, but that's how I started. I got pissed off enough to actually do something about it and started doing research. And that's where I found the book Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. So I didn't know anything about Robert Kiyosaki. I didn't know Rich Dad Poor Dad, but in that book, he talks about how Robert Kiyosaki, he's the CPA for Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so I was like, all right, so Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that was a mindset book. But in that book, he talked about focus. So I got lucky, because I know there's a lot of people that go off and do all these different things, and shiny object syndrome and all that. But focus is fixate on one course until successful, or follow one course until successful, how do you want to call it. And Zuber, his number one thing is focus as well, too. So I took that, okay, good. I just wanted to listen. And actually, it's funny, Cody was one of the first people I saw after Dion, and he was like 19, or when he first started, he was I think he was on Bigger Pockets or something. And I was like, wow, check that kid out, So it's kind of neat being after him. But anyway, so I decided to do that. I was like, I'm going to fixate on one course until successful. Well, Intel taught me to set your goals and work backwards. I don't know if you guys know, anyway, that's how they operate. There's KPIs, all that stuff came from Intel, so that's where I'm from. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to set my goals. What are my goals? I'm similar to Dion, and then I want about 200K, 20K net a month, right? That's my goal. We're halfway there, by the way, so that's kind of cool. So I set the goal. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Set the goal and work backwards. And so I was like, all right, how do I get there? So I wanted to start with the strategy first. And I'm like, all right, I didn't know. When I tell people I'm an out-of-state investor in co-living, they look at me like I'm crazy. Even Zuber said, what? I was like, I didn't know that it was hard. So I didn't know any better. So ignorance was kind of bliss. Right? I was like, oh, I don't know, this fit the goal. So I wanted to make 20K net. And like I said, I'm halfway there. But I said, all right, what are the strategies? So I was looking out there, all these different strategies. I started with looking at, traveling nurses was big for a while. And I did some research on that. And I found that it was Texas, Florida, Arizona. There we go. Texas, Florida, Arizona, where I think Texas had like 21 level 1. What am I doing here? 21 level 1 trauma centers, right, for the traveling nurses and all that. And then Florida had 9, and Arizona had a few. But my research, if you're doing traveling nurses, sorry, but my research said that about 2029, 2030, that was going to dry up because all the education was going to come on board. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. So the only other thing that fit that cash flow goal was co-living. And I was like, what is this? So I started digging into it, and my wife and I were talking about it, and we found pad split. And it's like, all right, cool. So did about 5 months worth of research and decided that Arizona would be a good play because there's 5 million people there, and the Phoenix metro is like 1.2 or whatever. A lot of people there that could use co-living, right? Does anybody here think the economy is getting better? How many people think the economy is getting worse? Okay, well, so I think it's probably getting a little worse, and there's more demand for affordable housing, right? So that was my thought. And I was like, all right, well, co-living fits the bill, and it, is lucrative, and the tax benefits, right? So It's kind of funny. The reason Arizona was my target state is because I was looking for something that would offset my tax burden, and I couldn't go buy like a bunch of small 50K houses. I mean, I could, but the offset, and at the time we didn't have the 100% bonus depreciation, right? So now it came back, woohoo! But at the time it was going down, so I was like, all right, I need to have more expensive homes, and so the state of Arizona worked, but the prices of the houses were pretty expensive. But for my goals, like they say, personal finance is personal, so that would fit my goal, and everything else worked with the population and all that. So anyway, that's what I decided to do. Arizona, co-living. Let me get my notes up here. So last year, I debated whether to say this or not, but since people are throwing numbers around, we've only been at this 2.5 years, but we grossed about 250K, and I was like, woo, that's pretty good. So as I said, I wasn't raised around real estate. Mom, dad, low income, basically. And skip that over. But just the same thing I was reiterating. I was going through my little notes here. My parents were, my dad was a security guard. My mom was a hairdresser. So we didn't have a lot of money, like, to go out and buy all this stuff, right? So that didn't come from money, in other words, right? So, like I said, I went to Intel, worked my way up to mid-level manager, got upset, started asking questions, doing research, found the tax-free wealth, which said poor dad. And then, like I said, Robert Kiyosaki said focus. So that's what I started doing. I originally thought that I'd wasted a couple decades of my life by joining the Army and working in corporate and all this stuff. But then I realized after I started, that was only partially true. The Army taught me discipline, which as a young lad, I couldn't have done what Cody did. I was a wreck. Ask my dad. And so the Army straightened me out, got some discipline, and then corporate taught me a lot too. So for people out there that have a job and maybe they're starting out and they're like, hey, I don't have the experience. There's a lot of stuff. A lot of people say that real estate is a person or personnel or people business, and that's true. So working with corporate and being a manager and whatnot of multiple people, multiple teams, taught me a lot how to work with people. Obviously finances and things like that, and budget and all that's true, but people was the main takeaway there. So after I told my wife I was quitting my job and whatnot, and I sold all the toys, Mark Kohler here, I was telling you, my lawyer, was talking to him. I ran into, my wife makes fun of me about this, so like most people like movie stars and actors and all that stuff. I like lawyers. And so we're in Arizona, I was like, hey, you're Mark Kohler, and he's like, yeah. So I started talking to him, and that 15-minute conversation made me $45,000. So that was pretty cool. I learned about the STR loophole. Anybody know that one? Yeah, so we went out and bought our first house in 2023 as a pilot, but instead of running it as a pad split right off the bat, since it was towards Q4, we went ahead and took his advice, and we ran it as a short-term rental. And that was a great move. So we rented it out 3 times, under 7 days, and you can look up STR loophole and Google it, and it'll tell you all the strategies. But what that allows you to do is it allows you to turn that into active income, so you can offset your tax burden. So, and you don't need to be a rep status for that. So it was pretty cool. So I did that, end of the year, and then January 2024, we flipped it over to a co-living house. And we'd filled it in 12 days. And I was like, wow. And it was working out really, really well. So we went about 4 months with that, and I decided that I wanted to go ahead and do it again. So we started looking, but it was starting to get a little bit saturated in that area because this was Glendale, Arizona. And I was like, well, there's too much competition here. And also I knew that TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, anybody know? They were building up north in Phoenix. So I decided to take a risk. I wanted to be central, but I decided to take a risk and bought a house up north, which was closer to TSMC. I figured all the construction and fiber and cable and all that stuff would help some of the people that needed places for a while to stay in one of the homes. Turned out to be really, really good because I think about 30-some-odd% of our members, even today, are still TSMC. Because I bought another house there too, but I'll get to that in a second. So anyway, we filled that house, and I decided, I'm a hardhead sometimes. Dion told me in one of his meetings, always get 3 bids for contractors. I'm gonna say it again, always get 3 bids for contractors. So the first house I did exactly that. Yay! And it worked out great. I went out and talked to other investors in my area that used the contractors and actually used them, not just, I heard somebody say, blah, blah, blah. People that used them and were happy with them. So I got 3 bids, went with the middle one. The guy seemed pretty good. He did. He came in on time, on budget. It was fantastic. It was great. So on the next house, instead of getting 3 bids like I was told, I don't know what I was thinking. I decided to use that guy again. It's like, hey, it worked out so great. Let's do it again. Well, I live in Oregon, and we invest in Arizona, so I flew down for the inspection, and, earnest money had a 10-day inspection period, and I flew down on the 9th day of the 10-day inspection. Get down there, he gives me the bid the next day on the 10th day of the inspection, and it's 3x the cost. It's like 75 grand just to add a few bedrooms. Like, what the? I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So I ended up having to drop that contract, which sucked, because, you're looking and making offers, and you finally get something under contract, and then it just didn't work. I didn't have a backup, I didn't have any other contractors like I should have. So anyway, it ended up working out, but the point is I ended up getting that house, and I'll tell you, it's a long story, but I ended up making another offer, getting that house under contract for 20 grand less. It was great, but it wasn't the plan. But in the meantime, it had another deal that was going that ended up being my third house. So anyway, I personally believe, and I now get 3 contract bids for everything going forward, because I didn't understand that, but I guess contractors, when they're working, they get flows, and sometimes they bid up, and depending on their workload and whatnot. So anyway, if you get 3 bids, you save yourself a few bucks. So when I bought the second one, you're going to go through a lot of trials and tribulations and things, but my mom had a stroke like 6 months prior, and I bought the second one, and then we had the third one, and we were right in the middle of bringing 2 houses online, and then my mom died. So sorry to bum you out, but my wife and I, we worked through it, and we got there. But man, it was tough. So you're gonna have stuff out there, and when your sewer breaks or whatnot, just think of me and say, hey, well, at least my mom didn't die. So, sorry to bum you out. Sorry about this, sorry. So then I wanted to talk about some more adversity. So I just cruising along, I had 23 of the 24 units filled in all 3 houses, and I was like, man, I'm doing great. And I was doing pad splits. So if you guys know pad split, they bring the members to you, they vet them supposedly, and they collect rents, and then you do the rest. Like you do the maintenance and all that. And if you think pad split's gonna be the property manager, you're sadly mistaken. For anybody that's doing pad split, you know what I'm talking about. So we were at that last person, and looking back on it, I in my back of my head, you know in the back of your head that something's a little off. This guy, there wasn't anything particularly wrong with him. It just he kept saying, "Oh, you're not gonna have problems out of me. You're not gonna have problems out of me." But I was so excited to get that 100% occupancy, I just was like, "Oh, I did it." I did that. He moves in. Everything's good. 2 weeks later, a lady that had been with me since I started and said she was going to be there a long time moves out, and I hear nothing. And I'm like, "What's going on?" Right? And then another. And I'm like, oh man, this is not good. I got to find this out. Nobody would tell me anything. And so the third moved out, and then the fourth. This was all within like 3 weeks, right? Everything was relatively stable. And yes, you do have a lot of turnover, but not like that. And so I was like, what in the hell? So the fourth person says she's going to move out. It's like, look, will you tell me what's going on? She's like, not until I move out. Fine. So she moves out. She tells me, come to find out, this guy's he's a big dude, right? And pretty aggressive, and it was upsetting some people. Nobody told me anything. And so this is where my cleaning lady comes in. She tells me all this stuff now, so like a little spy. But, well, so I find out this, and so I was like, oh man, this is not going well. And so then she tells me that he's smoking in the house, aggressive with people, and just not working out. So I go talk to him, and I know this isn't legal, but I went down there, flew down there, and talked to him and said, look, man, one way or another, you're leaving. So today or tomorrow, but you're leaving. Okay, so he ends up leaving, no evictions, nothing like that. But I was negative cash flow in that month, for that house. But luckily, the other 2 houses were producing, so I wasn't negative on the portfolio, but negative on that house. But what that taught me, you know how bad you got to mess up a co-living house to go negative cash flow, man? It's pretty bad, especially with 8 bedrooms. So anyway, we had a talk with him. He moved out, and then the other properties ended up covering the bill and everything. But the point is vet your tenants, right? So especially with rent by rooms, you guys know this. You guys, the short or the long-term rental guys, you know this better than I do. But I was using pad split, and they were doing the vetting. So what that forced me to do, pain is a good teacher, right? So that hurt bad. I was like, this is not good. This is not going to work out. Because my ultimate goal is to get to where that income will be my only income, and I won't have the W-2, which at that time I didn't have the W-2. So I ended up going back to Intel a year later. So, but anyway, so pain's a good teacher. So I improved my checklist, and I interview people and talk to them. So at first I sort of did this on purpose. I let pad split put people in there to see what would happen. and it wasn't that good. And so I did have a checklist, and I did interview people and whatnot, because they only give you like 24 hours to approve or deny the people, which is too short. Anyway, so I did that, but then I sat down and built myself a checklist. And the first thing I say, I actually drive off about 10% of the people, and then the other 40% I deny. And Pat Split hates me because I did not, about 50% of the people they bring me, I don't take. And people tell me, oh man, you're losing a member. No, I'm not. I'm avoiding a problem. And the first thing I say is, co-living doesn't work organically. You have to enable it. And like 10% of the people right there, they're just like, I'm out, it's not for me. Good, you're not gonna work. And so, and then the other like say 40% or so are people that just, Pat Split approved, but I'll do a little bit of Facebook's, all that stalking and whatnot, look at people and see some stuff. I'm like, man, I don't need the drug person or the fight person, any of that stuff that causes issues, right? So for me, it's the property itself. I look for, like I said, 2,000 square feet, but also parking. So, if you're in South Carolina and you got big properties, probably not going to apply to you, but in your market, for me, Arizona, or Phoenix anyway, is a commuting town. So you're going to need a car, but still about half the people don't have cars, so that works. So if you have public transportation nearby, that's great. But I look for a lot of parking, because if you have what I call a sandwich lot or sandwich house, then you're not going to have a lot of parking on either side. You're going to piss off the neighbors. So I look for those houses, but I also look in C and B- neighborhoods. That way you're not going to have hopefully not the Karens that are going to, come after you and stuff. Sorry. For anybody's named Karen, I apologize. Sorry that just came out. So, all right, take a quick break here. Obviously, I'm not a public speaker, but it's my first time doing this too, so thank you. All right, thanks. There you go. All right, so I created a better checklist. Listen to, Lumberjack and Dion and Coach Carson. Actually, Coach Carson on the floor there, the very first ORAT. So Dion had talked to me and said, slow down. And Matt had told me, hey, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I'd be in military, I understood what that meant, but it didn't sink in. And then Coach Carson, he was so funny. He's a tall guy, right? I don't think he's here, but he said, he looked at me and he looked in my eyes and he's like, come here, man. And he said, look, man, if you're going to go out and buy up 10 houses and you make a mistake, you're going to pay that 10 times. Whereas if you go out and buy one house, and I'd already had one house at this time, and you learn that mistake, you're going to avoid that cost 9 times. Well, when he said cost, that sunk in. I was, ooh, money. Yeah, I don't want to do that. So that he actually got through to me. So I appreciate that. So, Coach, I know you're not here, but thank you. But where the hell is he? There he is, right there. That was actually a picture that was taken right up there when he told me that. So anyway, through all this, I changed as a person, and hopefully you guys will too if you're starting out. But I know Zuber interviewed me once, and he said, oh, Jared's a numbers guy. I was not a numbers guy, and my wife can attest to that. But I became a numbers guy because when I learned that the math and the numbers behind it were dollars, that changed everything. So it really set my focus, right? Different kind of focus, right? So mathing, right? So anyway, it's funny because I did go, some would say kind of fast, but everybody has their own path. So we bought, I think, 3 houses in 8 months, something like that. And then we did slow down. But you would think being in one rental at a time community would have been a clue, but no, I didn't catch that part. But, I had this half-baked plan to do as much as I could in 1 year and then go back to work if I could. I didn't know the job market was going to get all, crazy on me. So, it got really, really tough if you guys, know looking for jobs. But I was able to weasel my way back into Intel, and I wanted to do that because it would ease the financial pressure on the family, because my wife was like, what are you doing? But it was working out. We were making some money, but I needed to go back and get a W-2. So did that, and also we needed the insurance, and then needed basically be lendable, right? So when I quit the job, like a genius, I bought the first house when I was employed, and then I didn't have a plan, and so I didn't have a job, and so when I went to buy the second house, the only option was DSCR for, you guys probably know the debt service coverage ratio loans. But being that I was brand new, didn't have any history, these people are like, really? What are you doing, right? So I had to put 25% down on this house, which hurt, right? And that wasn't part of the plan. But did it, got it running, and then a month later I came back to them and said, hey, I want another one. And they're like, what? You don't have any track record here whatsoever. So they said, you got to put 30% down. I was like, all right, 30% down it was. So we were just, cruising along, and call me crazy, but it worked out pretty good for us. So anyway, I changed as a person. I track income, expenses, budget intentionally, live below our means. My wife helps me out with that one, thank you. But everybody I knew, I mean everybody, even my wife didn't say it out loud, but I could tell, but all her friends, everybody I knew said, don't let them do this, don't do this. But I don't know, after reading that book, Tax-Free Wealth, it just was so crystal clear to me, and I saw it, and I was like, this has got to be the way, right? So I went forward. So I guess what I'm saying there is, like Cody was saying, don't take advice from people that aren't in the game, right? If they're not in the game, how do they know, right? They're not going to be able to tell you anything. So I learned that too. So I guess I want to talk about how I invest a little bit here, and then I want to open up for questions, because if people have questions, I want to get to that. So I do want to say, though, that the first 3 properties I bought were pad splits, but then pad split changed their fee structure. So if anybody's looking to get in pad split, just know that they take a pretty healthy bite these days. So our 4th property we bought, we decided to pivot a little bit, and we bought in East Valley. For those that know, West Valley, East Valley, a little bit different. But we bought in the East Valley, and we're running it ourselves. And this way I get to do the background checks, credit checks, and I can put people in there that I feel that are going to work out. Whereas with pad split, they're just putting people in there, and you have 24 hours of it. By and large, you have some issues with it. At least I've had some issues with it. So I like the fact that we can do background checks and get to know the people and put people in there we think are going to get along. And I'm also doing a little bit different. So pad split does the 1 week at a time thing with a 12-week commitment, which is weird. But they said they do that because not everybody pays. Great. Well, I decided to just charge up front and do month. But I'm also doing 1 year and 6-month leases, which is a little harder to fill, but it's easier to manage. I think we've had, 1 or 2 calls in 4 months versus pad split where I get a call once a week. Someone ate my peanut butter, or, this and that. There's all these, whatever issues, that kind of thing. So, you hear some weird stuff, right? So, or so-and-so's playing their music too loud. Great, awesome. So you got to deal with a lot. So, but I was going to mention my wife. Having my partner on board has been just a game changer, right? Because if that wasn't the case, man, this would be rough. So, as I mentioned before, if you do have hobbies or, time-consuming things or expensive hobbies, maybe, give those up to focus on the real estate, and maybe your wife or husband, spouse, whatever, get on board. So, in my case, wife. All right, and also your day job, right? So your day job, you might have some skills or some knowledge there that might translate into real estate. So don't sleep on the day job. I did. But after I got into it, I realized, hey, this actually is helping out. And then paying is tuition. Right, so it's kind of weird. In the beginning, especially with no job, when something bad happened, like that guy messing up, or toilet breaking, or hot water heater going out, or the 3rd house I bought, the AC went out day 1. Like the thing had been running fine, it tested out great, and then day 1, AC went out. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. And I had a guy in there already, so that was rough. But pain's tuition. But listen to other people, mitigate what you can, but you're gonna make mistakes and things are gonna happen. So just power through it, right? So you'll improve as you go. And I also say ignore the critics that aren't in the arena, right? If they're not in the game, how are they going to know? The big one here is for people. I saw some people raise their hands that hadn't started yet. So some people, I'm not going to name any names, but some people spend 2.5 years doing research and going through spreadsheets and whatnot. And, never start, but they end up starting. But, start imperfect, but start, right? At least maybe start could be anything. Not buying a house, could be working with somebody, or like Ken McElroy. He started doing property management, right? And then look at him now. So awesome. Anyway, that was my spiel. Time for questions. So.
Look, what do you have to be sorry for? You did great. So as I promised, I'm going to try to go to questions from the Zoom first. There we go. Jared, what do you see as the future expansion of co-living as a product? Could you see whole families sharing rooms?
Wow. Not really. I mean, space is one thing, but on top of that, you got to figure if you're having whole families with multiple families, it's going to be huge. There's going to be too many people in there. But on top of that, everybody treats, this is one thing about co-living that people don't talk about. I've never heard anybody talk about. When you have turnover, a lot of turnover, appliances, everybody uses appliances differently, like the faucets and showers and all that. And some people are rough on things. So, and some people leave ovens on. My cleaning lady says, hey, there's nobody here and the oven's on. Things like that. So no, not really. Go ahead. Yeah, that's a new one. I don't even, I take single occupants. I only do single occupants. And the reason for that is I'm doing 8 bedrooms. So, yeah, it's a lot.
I'm up.
Yeah, sure.
For the property you're managing yourself, where are you sourcing your members?
I've had a lot of good luck with Turbo Tenant. I used it for, I would use Turbo Tenant for whenever Pad Split didn't fill the rooms fast enough. I would get on Turbo Tenant because it was free, and I'm cheap ass. But I would get on there and use it, and I used it, and it's added so much value that I just decided to pay for it. It's like $169 a year, and that gave you a few little trinkets and this and that. But I also use Facebook Marketplace, and those two worked out well. One thing with Facebook Marketplace, this is going to sound dumb, but I'm going to say it anyway. I got on Facebook Marketplace and I was advertising, and everybody, all these other hosts were telling me, "Oh, it's working out great for me," and I'm like, "It's not working for me. I've got nothing." And they're like, "Well, what groups are you in?" And I was like, "Oh." So I got into, I know, hey man, you're focused on stuff and you pull back and go, oh yeah, that would have been a good idea. So I started joining, like TSMC has Facebook groups for housing, and that's been pretty good. So yeah, join the groups that in the areas you want, and that works out great. And Turbo Tenant, I know they have some issues. They just recently, about 3 months ago, added the room feature. So you can actually, I used to have to create a property per room, and that sucked. And so now they have a property, and you can just add units, and you can turn off and on advertising. And they blast out to like 20 different sites, apartments.com. Oh, tip for apartments.com though, they strip the title out. And so you need to put something in, because I put in the title single occupant, private room for rent. But apartments.com strips that out and puts the address. So I put that in the first line of the description, and that mitigates a lot of the calls. Hey, I want to, rent your house or what? Nah, it's a single, room for rent. That type. Oh, sorry, click. So you mitigate some of that. So yeah, Turbo Tenant's working good for me, and others have used it too, and they've been pretty happy with it. So.
Hey, Jared,
Yeah.
You are investing. You're using a challenging strategy. You're doing it out of state, all because you hate taxes.
Yeah.
What is it about you? Your experience that has set you up to be successful in that challenging strategy?
I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn as hell. Ask my wife. So I didn't know it was hard until Zuber told me. He's like, what? I'm like, I didn't know any better. So here's the goal. I guess the military too, and Yatsik's here. He'll back me up on this one. That was the mission. Go after the mission. So it didn't matter what had happened, just you got to get to that goal. And I'm halfway there, so I'm still working on it. So I guess drive,
What's the importance of that half bath? You said 2.5 baths.
Yeah.
You
So
said you're going to cover it.
concrete slab houses. So if you're going to add, Pad Split has a goal of 4-to-1 ratio. So if I have an 8-bedroom, they want at least 2 baths. That's not going to work. You need at least 3, right? In my opinion, you need to try to get to that 3-to-1. And I'm kind of straddling it with the 8 with the 3 bath. But for me, being in that most houses in Arizona are concrete slab, that's too expensive. Like if you have a foundation and crawl space or something, adding a bathroom is a lot cheaper. But with concrete slab, man, if you had to add, you're going to be busting up stuff. Like Frank and Jim, they can tell you it's expensive, right? So that half bath, if it has a toilet in it, it's a lot easier. You can just add a shower for a couple grand, and boom, you got your 3rd bath. Or I've got one house, I just left the half bath. And that's working out pretty good too. So that's the importance in my market for the half bath. So, Chester?
Great story as always, Jared. So the question, and then I'll finish up with a thought that you had that came to mind when Alex was asking his question. So you go through, I don't say go through, but have a lot of experience with vetting tenants based on this strategy. So what are some indicators that you see when you're vetting tenants that will either give you that green light or an immediate red light?
The questions they ask tell volumes. And then the last guy, I've learned that's a red flag for me. I don't know about you guys, but if somebody tells you repeatedly, you're not going to have problems out of me, you're going to have problems out of them. I know, call me dumb. But yeah, the questions, and also I don't ask if they smoke. I say, when you smoke, where do you smoke? And they say, oh, I don't smoke. Because if you say, some people, if you say, do you smoke, they'll say no, but they actually do. And I include vaping and all that stuff too. But the questions they ask, so for me, I'm doing single occupant, and because there's some people that will tell you that it's just them, but yet they're going to try to have their girlfriend stay and all that kind of stuff. So if they ask a lot of questions around a certain topic, that's kind of a red flag. And depending on what it is, you might drill in it a little bit more, and then you ask the why, not the why, but you keep asking questions in that space, and you'll draw out of them. I spend a lot of time. I probably spend 10, 15 minutes on the phone with people, more than most, I would imagine. Because I've heard people, there's a negative thing out there with pad split and co-living, like, oh, it sucks, it's this and that. And I'm like, well, do you talk to the people? No. They just take whatever you get. Well, that's not going to work. You get what you put in when you're going to get out. So for me, it's just spending time with them, talking to them, get to know them a little bit more. And I'll say something real quick. Part of this, for me, when I was younger, I lived in my car for a bit, right? And then I joined the Army. So, there's some of the people that I've met that were doing just that. One guy told me he lived in a closet, like a literal closet. Yeah. And so he was at a friend's house. Like, wow, that's crazy. But to me, it's helping people out where otherwise they'd be living in their car. So that's cool because it's cheap enough to where they can get in. But also there's some stories. And once I get to our goal, my wife told me not to do this until we get to our goal. But I want to start a financial house, or at least an education for maybe entrepreneurs or financial, that type of thing, because I think that'd be super cool. Because there's a few people along the way that asked me, like during the interview process, like, hey, what do you do? I had one lady, Rachel, she was with me for about a year and a half, and she'd paid off all her credit cards. I said, hey, look, I would look at your highest interest, went through the spiel with her, and she didn't have any like financial knowledge like at all. Like, she just using credit cards and going crazy, and I'm like, really? So she did that, paid them all off. She was super happy, stayed another 6 months before she left, and had another lady that was a nurse, and she was working 3 jobs. She was only with me for 8 months, and when she left, she was, I was like, hey, why are you leaving? Everything okay? She's like, oh yeah, it's great. I was like, mind me asking what you're doing? She's, oh, I'm buying a house. And I was like, dude, that's awesome, right? So there's some really good stories, and it's a feel-good thing for me also. It's not just about the money, so.
Gotcha. And then I just wanted to say, in terms of persistence, what you were talking about, and then perspective, the fact that you're doing this strategy, and then it took for somebody later to be like, did you know that you're doing one of the most difficult or toughest strategies? And you're like, I had no clue until afterwards. That perspective of like, you don't know what's possible until you actually get started or get into it. So definitely good stuff.
Yeah, when I joined the Army, the recruiter, I took the SFAB half lit and passed it and got all the scores or whatever, and I could do any job I wanted to do. But when I was in high school, my car broke down. I was a football, jock, wrestling, rugby track guy, but I didn't know anything about cars. My car broke down, so we didn't have the internet back then. Yes, I'm old. Went to the library, learned about it, and it was the water pump. It took me all day to change it. So when I joined the Army, I wanted to get a skill. I knew I was getting out the day I joined. It was going to be in 3 years and out. And I wanted to get a skill. And so I wanted to be a mechanic. And the recruiter was pissed because he could fill all these boxes, and I didn't want those. He goes, you know what the 2 worst jobs are? Is mechanic, and I go, let me guess, a mechanic. And he goes, yeah, mechanic and cook. I was like, I don't care, I want to be a mechanic. So yeah, I'm a little stubborn. So.
Well, I was thinking with Valentine's Day, when you brought up your wife, relationships are so important. I lost my first wife about 6 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And she would have never let me get into real estate. We had one rental for a while, and it was a hell. And then I got remarried, sold my house, moved in with my beautiful bride, and we started about 3 years ago. And she's been such a support, but I think, you quit your job. I didn't quit my job. We had the money came from my house that it doubled in about 2000 to 22 and everything else. But we had that as a startup kind of cost. And I also pulled out of all my investments because the stock market was tanking for me. Yeah. But what advice would you give? How did you get through with your wife and keep your relationship going? Because relationships are key.
Yeah, for me it was just selling the toys. It was an accident. So I guess I should back up. I was really big into off-road. So when I was in the Army, I got to play with some cool stuff, 113s and Humvees and whatnot, bombing through the mud. So I thought that was really fun. So when I got out, I started doing that as a hobby and was doing that for 26 years, something like that. And so when I sold the toys, the Jeep, that told my wife, oh, he's serious. So that's why I was mentioning, if you have like a hobby or something that you're really passionate about, if you give that up and use that towards real estate, your spouse might just get on board. So I don't know, it's a total accident, so I don't know.
Hey, Jared.
Hey.
I really liked the message, and one of my goals for coming out here was to ask some questions and kind of integrate myself. Speaking of the toys, My question is, like, how much blood is worth the draw for this kind of work? And, like, how many sacrifices should I be expecting to make? I mean, a hobby of 25 plus years, that's a lot. So.
Yeah. Well, I think the first part of that you're asking about. Oh, yeah. I think part of your question was like the sacrifice. Yeah, that sucked. Like, but someday I'll be able to buy that stuff back. Probably better. But were you asking about the co-living piece itself and how hard that part is with working with people? Is that what part of the question is?
Sort of. More like, how much are you expecting for your personal life to change, and what should I be expecting to give up? Do I have to give anything up? What sacrifices are included with this work?
Yeah, I don't know your life, but I'm assuming you've got things going on, so you're probably going to have, in the beginning, you're going to give up a lot. So it's been 2.5 years for us, and we really focused on systems, and I mean down to some dumb stuff like even $5 differences, because I'm trying to scale, and I figure if I don't do it up front, then long down the road it's going to be worse. So if you just go haphazard in the beginning, it's going to be a mess down the road. So try to get systems in place early. So I quit the job mainly for time. Well, access to the 401k, and I got a severance, and that's the reason I waited 1 year, because if I went back sooner than a year, I had to pay it back, and I wasn't paying it back. So I went back 1 year and 3 days later. Yeah, it's substantial, especially if you're gonna do this strategy. I don't know anything else. All I know is co-living, so I don't know the long-term rental stuff or any of that stuff at all. So yeah, I spent 8 months, and on top of that, because I was out of state, I had to build a really good team locally in Arizona. I went through 4 or 5 cleaning ladies, a bunch of 3 bookkeepers, and I do the books myself now because you can't find a good bookkeeper out there. At least I couldn't. But yeah, it took a year, and I was focused, 100%. So I don't know if that's going to be your path, but it's substantial, especially in the beginning. But just know, for me, I'm halfway there. I'm only been at it 2.5 years, and I've got a ways to go. I know Zuber says 10 years. I'm trying to do it in 7. So just saying. Yeah. But financially we're halfway there. But yeah, it's going to take a lot.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Matt.
Hey, what's up, Jared? How you
man.
doing? Whoa, sorry, loud. Great to see you. Thanks for sharing. I know that a ton of people in ORAT love hearing your story, are interested in it. Myself included, I agree that this is a space in the market and a niche that is going to continue to increase in demand all over. Pad Split recently came to Sacramento. So my question is, if knowing what you know now, 2.5 years in, if you were to do it all over, would you still start with Pad Split and say, listen, I don't know what I don't know. I'm going to start with Pad Split, let them do it. In my eyes, and tell me if I'm wrong, if a deal works with them taking a big bite, it's a great deal. And then it only gets better if I decide to self-manage down the road. But going back to the beginning, if you were to start today, would you still use Pad Split?
I would. And the reason I would for the first one is just like what you said. They have at least the framework, and at least get you started, right? Yeah, they take a bite, but that's tuition, the way I see it.
Yeah.
We were actually, I'm a big Sam Wiegert fan, and he doesn't do Pad Split. He does longer-term leases and doesn't furnish. I furnish longer-term leases, but I originally was going to do that. But because I ran into Mark Kohler, he told me about the short-term rental. We had to furnish because we had to rent it. We only rented it 3 times, but we already had the house furnished, so might as well do Pad Split. So it was a happy accident. And so it worked out well, so we kept rolling with it until they changed your fee structure. But yeah, I absolutely would, because at least they have the framework, and also you get the benefit. Once a month they have meetups, and you can talk to other hosts, and you're in the community, just like one rental at a time community, you learn from it. But then for me, I deviated away, and I like doing it myself better, so that was how I worked out.
Awesome, man. Yeah. The whole community loves rooting you on. We'd love to see you crushing
thanks,
it, man.
Yeah, sorry.
You all have those white sticks for a reason. Do you not remember? All right. It's supposed to be visual for my camera guys. What am I saying? All right, here you go.
Number 2.
You got it. All right, thank you. Well done. So again, folks, we are at our first break, but let me tell you a couple of housekeeping items. First and foremost, we had some custom houses created. These are free. I'm drawing a blank on who created them. Josh Burdick, right? Yes, Josh Burdick came back to me. So if you want to get one of these, and he created 400, so everybody in the room should get one, you have to go to the Orat bookstore, which is upstairs. There are books up there, some cool swag we generated just for this event. We've created very limited edition, 25 to 30 pieces. So again, if you want some Orat swag, they're up there. But please go get your custom houses. And here's the deal. If you have these and you're doing projects, this is like fun thing, bring them with you and put these just like in the corner, like little Easter eggs. So this community can see that we're all doing this together. So again, Josh, Burdick, Julie? Yes! I suck at names, so I got those right. Thank you very much for doing this. Julie was listening to the printer go at night when these were created, so much respect. You have 15 minutes, and then Jason Hartman. Be back.
Stay alive, better do what you can, so beat it. second-hand unwind. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. After my picture fades and darkness has turned to gray, watching through windows, you're wondering if I'm okay. Secrets stolen from deep inside. The drum beats out of time. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. You said go slow, I fall behind. The second-hand unwind. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. 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 Time after time.
Looking in your eyes, I see a paradise. This world that I found is too good to be true. Standing here beside you, want so much to give you this love in my heart that I'm feeling for you.
Let 'em say we're crazy. I don't care about that. Put your hand in my hand, baby. Don't ever look back. Let the world around us just fall apart. Baby, we can make it if we're heart to heart. And we can build this dream together, standing strong forever. Nothing's gonna stop us now. And if this world runs out of lovers, we'll still have each other. Nothing's gonna stop us. Nothing's gonna stop us now.
I'm so glad I found you. I'm not gonna lose you. Whatever it takes, I will stay here with you. Take it to the good times, see it through the bad times. Whatever it takes is what I'm gonna do.
Let 'em say we're crazy. What do they know? Put your arms around me, baby. Don't ever let go. Let the world around us now and then I get a little bit tired of listening to the sound of my tears. Every now and then I get a little bit nervous that the best of all the years have gone by. Every now and then I get a little bit terrified, and then I see the look in your eyes. Every now and then I fall apart. Every now and then I fall apart, and I need you now tonight, and I need you more than ever. And if you only hold me tight,
Hello?
we'll be holding on forever, and we'll only be making it right, 'cause we'll never be wrong. Together we can take it to the end of the line. The love is like a shadow on me all of the time. I don't know what to do, and I'm always in the dark. We're living in a powder keg and giving off balls. I really need you tonight. Forever's gonna start tonight.
1 minute warning, 1 minute warning, 1 minute warning. I know there's a line for the store. It will be open all weekend. You're going to want to hear from Jason Hartman. Yeah, shirts and stuff. Yeah. 1 minute warning for the legend, Mr. Jason Hartman. 1 minute.
Once upon a time there was light in my life, but now there's only love in the dark. Nothing I can say, total eclipse of the heart. Every now and then I fall apart. Every now and then I fall apart, and I need you now tonight, and I need you more.
Hey, folks, please get back to your seats. I do run a tight ship. I've tried to pack the most value into the agenda, but some of this I need your help. If you're in the back of the room on the lower level, we can hear you talking. It's an echo chamber from right there. So let's work ourselves back to our seats. Yeah, there you go. If you're in my community, I see Kenny back there, Matt the mortgage guy. Let's get people seated. Wave them down, push them. That's loud. Yeah. All right. 10-second countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's wave the sticks. Let's go. Let's get some energy. Woohoo! Remember, you're supposed to take those home with you. I would ask that you bring them back tomorrow, but most of you won't because you'll forget. But take them home with you. Leave them on the shelves. It's a memory I paid for you. Those were not free, so please take them. I don't want to pack them. I don't want to bring them home. So one of the things I love about One Rental at a Time is we are growing as a community, but we're also getting better known in the industry for helping folks. So how do I know that? I know that because folks like Jason Hartman reach out to me and we have a conversation. And then he says, hey, you know that weekly thing you do with other people? Can we do that? And I was blown away, shocked. Right, when legends like Jason Hartman reach out to you and say, hey, can we talk every week? What is the only answer you can give? Yes, of course. When are you free? 2 a.m.? Beautiful. I'm just kidding. It's, when do we talk? I think it's 9 a.m. every Monday. Where's Jason? I lost him. Oh, there he is. All right, folks, I'm not going to take any time from Jason Hartman. Again, remember the deal with our events. You get to ask questions of the speakers. So Jason is going to go for 45 minutes-ish, and he's going to take 15 minutes a question, and you know what's even better because of this guy? He is not running out like all of the other, you know who I'm talking about. They just leave after they speak. He's going to be here all day. So if you don't get your question asked, he's not going anywhere. He will be at lunch. He will be at dinner, at least for the first little bit. So again, let's welcome Jason Hartman to the stage. Get those things going.
Thank you, Mr. Zuber, and good morning, ORAT. How you doing, ORAT? Do you like that acronym? ORAT. I didn't actually, I have to confess, when I first saw that on Michael's screen, I thought, oh, one rental at a time. That's, yeah. But it's such a great philosophy that Michael has, just slowly building wealth through one rental at a time. All of the people who are the distracted people, the people that really don't create real wealth in their lives, are moving from thing to thing. They've just got like overstimulation, right? Kind of like my puppy, if you haven't met my dog yet. How many speakers bring a dog? Yeah. At my events, we host an annual event called Empowered Investor Live, and I lost my last dog last April, and it's just so tough to lose an animal because with an animal, unlike a human, it's like just totally pure, it's totally pure love, right? And you have no regrets. And now she's talking. What are you saying? But so I let the dog roam around the room and greet everybody. So it's like whatever other conferences do you go to where there's a house dog? It's kind of funny, right? Anyway, so I'm Jason Hartman. I've been in the real estate investment business for the last 22 years, and we help investors buy properties nationwide. And let me tell you, I have learned so much by watching all of these investors go through their journey. And I hope I can share some of that stuff with you today, and I hope it helps you and delivers a lot of value. I want to cover several things. They're not like directly related, but I think they're really important. And most of you have seen me on YouTube with Michael, or maybe my own YouTube channel or podcast. I was like one of the super early podcasters with the Creating Wealth show that started 22 years ago. Like nobody knew what a podcast was back then. I had to explain it over and over. What is that, a radio show? Nobody got it. But now everybody gets it, and that's great. So let's dive into a whole bunch of stuff, and time is limited, so I'm going to go kind of fast. But I will stick around for questions, of course, throughout the event. Okay, so I read this book recently, or I guess I should say looked at this book because it's mostly pictures, called The Behavior Gap, just recently. Anybody heard of this book? And this is one of the main charts in the book. And I think this is super important. Now, you look at this chart and you might think, well, what is that telling me? Right? And what is it not telling me? That's another good question. The real estate investment, it works. It is the most historically proven asset class in world history. And if Bitcoin was doing really well right now, I might have to argue with people, but at the moment, you don't have to argue because we're in a Bitcoin winter. We'll see how that goes. But it is the most historically proven asset class in the entire world. The problem is not the asset class. The problem is the investor. Why is this? Because one of the most important things as investors, we must manage our own psychology. We must manage our own emotions. And, if anybody thinks that the world runs on logic, you're crazy, okay? The world runs on emotions that are justified with logic. I just bought a Ferrari. Was that logical? No. But I thought, I should have one of these exotic cars once in my life, right? And, but then you can rationalize it. You can say, oh, well, it's an investment. These exotic cars, these classic cars, they gain value, whatever. It's certainly not as good as real estate. You can't really justify it, okay? But the investor has their emotions when the market is up and down, good and bad, and they basically act like this. Things are good, everybody gets greedy, the news is positive. Things are bad, everybody gets fearful, and they sell. You've heard that old acronym, FEAR, false education appearing real. And there are so many doomers out there that Michael and I are constantly debunking in the real estate world, and it's mind-boggling to me how people can be wrong over and over and over again for decades and still have huge audiences. I mean, it's just crazy. It makes no sense whatsoever to me how that works. But a lot of things don't make sense. People are wired to look for fear, to look for concern. It's the way our minds work. It helped us survive through eons of evolution. But the problem is what happened in the Industrial Revolution is fear became less of a thing. The world became abundant, where we weren't going to starve, we had shelter, we had all the basic needs covered. And security and war became kind of a thing of the past. I mean, the whole idea that people are fearful about safety is kind of crazy. We live in the safest time in history. Okay, I know, there's this war, there's that war, that's always going on. But compared to what? In the past, you would constantly be worried that your village would be invaded and burnt and you would be murdered. I mean, this is a very, very safe time. And it's a very abundant time. So you gotta be careful not to fall into this trap. There's Morgan Housel wrote The Psychology of Money, great book, and then he's written 2 other books, also great. I highly recommend those. He addresses this as well. He's more of a stock market guy. But this is one of the key things I want you to take away from this weekend. This is really so important. I took that picture out of a book, okay, and I can't even remember what book it was. But the best investors in the world are really good at doing nothing for long periods of time. As successful people, we tend to want to jump in and solve problems. We tend to want to be active. We want to be engaged. But sometimes the best thing to do is nothing. The people that win in the income property game are the people that just kind of sit tight and do the grind and manage their properties when nothing extraordinary is happening. And that's how it's been the last 3 years. Pretty uneventful, right? Market has been kind of just frozen, rents have been stagnant, nothing to write home about, no news, right? But if you're, a stock investor or a cryptocurrency investor, precious metals, of course, have been doing really well lately, but they were asleep forever, like real estate's been a little bit asleep for the past few years. This asset class is so much better because it's a multi-dimensional asset class. It's not about buy low, sell high. It's about at least 6 areas of strong return that make your investment work. And of course, you've heard the acronym, real estate is ideal, right? And that's what it stands for. But I add one thing to that, and that's inflation-induced debt destruction. That's what this old acronym doesn't show and doesn't tell you. So we'll go through that today a little bit. How many people have an iPhone? How many people have other Apple products if you don't have an iPhone? Okay? Apple became the world's most successful company ever. And I know, now we got NVIDIA and all of this stuff, right? But let's talk about Apple specifically. A company becomes successful by gaining a large share of people's income to buy their products and services. Would you agree with that? And you want to get the largest share you can. Now, with Apple products, I used to buy a new phone every year, but the phones are so much better that I usually buy a new one every 2 years now, okay? And so, you get a new phone every 2 years, this is $1,500, right? Every 2 or 3, I'll get a new laptop, I'll get the AirPods, I'll get this and that and the other thing, right? And they get a certain share of my income, and they get a certain share of yours if you buy their products. But just think about it. They became the world's most successful company by getting a couple $1,000 a year from people. As income property investors, let's think about our asset class for a moment and how much share of income we get. When you underwrite a tenant to rent one of your properties, you're typically, you don't want to rent to them if their income is not about triple the rent, okay? About 33%, maybe 40% at the most. But renters in Miami, for example, will pay like 55% of their income as rent. Crazy. That's not very safe, okay? But that's a huge share of income that you're getting to pay off your asset as an income property investor. So if you get 40%, just for round numbers, the first 12 days of every month of someone's income is paying you. Think about that. The first 146 days of every year is paying you. Wow. Share of income. Just appreciate that for a moment. Appreciate how powerful this asset class is. And this asset class, unlike a new phone or new AirPods, is not optional. Gotta have it. It's an absolutely mandatory asset class. Okay, so the other thing I want to impart to you is direct investing. You will never, I don't want to say never because things happen, okay? But as a figure of speech, never, you will never become wealthy investing in someone else's deal. You've got to be a direct investor. You've got to do your own stuff. And that's what the ORAT community teaches you. That's what I teach at Empowered Investor. You've got to be your own best advisor. You've got to be your own person going out into the marketplace and doing your own deals. Be a direct investor. The people that invest in the stock market, in a fund, a syndication, they are basically leaving themselves susceptible to 3 major problems. Now, 22 years ago, when I got into the investment side of the business, I used to own a traditional brokerage, sold it to Coldwell Banker back in 2005, and about a year before that deal closed, I started doing this business, the nationwide investing thing. And I came up with this framework called the 10 Commandments of Successful Investing. And by far, the one that has resonated with people the most is commandment number 3. Thou shalt maintain control. In other words, be a direct investor. Buy properties, rent them out yourself, and don't invest in other people's deals. When you invest in other people's deals, you're putting yourself lower on the food chain. You're making them rich, not you. You might get a decent return on investment, sure, but you're not going to get rich doing it, okay? So when you relinquish control, when you invest in someone else's deal, you leave yourself susceptible to 3 major problems. Number 1, you might be investing with a crook. We all know of WorldCom, Enron, Bernie Madoff, all of these companies on Wall Street. The scandals are left and right, but in real estate, they're true too. Ty Lopez is under investigation. Marco Santarelli, Narrator Real Estate, he's been indicted criminally in federal court, and he pled guilty in October, I believe, and then sentencing is next month. He could get 20 years in jail for running basically a Ponzi scheme, okay, like a $63 to $90 million Ponzi scheme. Lots of people relinquished control of their money to him and to other people and lost their money because they were investing with a crook. But let's assume they're honest. Let's assume they're honest. you might be investing with an idiot. Okay? They also need to be competent. There's two kinds of trust. There's integrity and then competence. They've got to be both, okay? You know, if you need brain surgery, for example, God forbid, I hope you never need that, right? But if you need brain surgery, you want your surgeon to be competent, but you also want them to have integrity, right? You want them to have both things, okay? So honesty and competence. The third problem, assuming they're honest and competent, now you've passed those two hurdles, the third problem is they take huge management fees off the top for managing the deal. And there's a great book that I read back in 2005 by Lou Dobbs. It's called War on the Middle Class. Great book. And in chapter 2, he talks about all of the Wall Street CEOs and all of the money they made as their stocks were crashing and investors were losing money. And the one example that is just mind-boggling is Larry Ellison, the founder and CEO of Oracle. You all heard of him, of course, you know, Playboy billionaire. And don't quote me on the exact numbers because I don't have it in front of me, but it's pretty close. In a 2-year period from like 2000 to 2002, Larry's personal take from the company was over $700 million, okay? Almost $1 billion. And in the same period, that would be fine. Listen, I'm a capitalist, okay? If all the investors were making money and all the customers were happy, all the stakeholders were winning, that would be okay. I'm all for paying people a lot for doing things right. But at the same time period, all the investors who had faith in his company and put their savings, their hard-earned money into it, lost 61% of the value of their investments. At the same time, he took almost $1 billion out of the company. There's a total divergence between what the investors get and what the promoters get. This could be a syndication, a fund, a Wall Street investment, any non-direct investment. So this is super important that you be a direct investor. This was the most controversial ad I ever did. Thankfully, I don't have to report to a board of directors who probably would have fired me. Right? But really, seriously, you know, you want to retire, you want to get rich, stop overcomplicating it. Stop investing in other people's deals. Just buy some fucking houses and rent them out. Like, it's not complicated. You know, I mean, really, just buy some fucking houses. By the way, my neighbor years ago, Donna, sent me this YouTube video, and it said the F word is the most versatile word in the English language. It's basically punctuation, okay? And so it drives the point home. But look for that video, it's hilarious. Shows all of the uses of this word, it's really funny. So here's how, and you maybe saw me go through this chart with Michael before, okay, on YouTube. But here's how all of the experts got it wrong, except Zuber and Hartman. We didn't get it wrong, okay? Here's how they all got it wrong. When interest rates had their historic rise 3 years ago or so, they all said, housing affordability is gonna tank, and it did. Housing affordability it just plummeted. Nobody could afford to buy a house, barely, right? And so they thought, okay, well, the market is gonna crash because people can't afford to buy the asset. That kind of makes sense. But they didn't ask themselves, compared to what? They didn't ask themselves about the dogs that don't bark. She's not barking, okay? You can't hear the dogs that don't bark. What dog wasn't barking in the analysis of affordability? People can't afford a house. The market's going to crash. Well, what dog isn't barking is the dog of all the people that controlled the housing stock in the country. There's over 140 million housing units in the US. And right now, there's about 0.5% of those houses for sale, a very low inventory. Normally, there's about 1%. Okay, so you'd have about 1.4 million, give or take, houses for sale if you had a normal inventory level. We've got about half that. So the people controlling the housing stock were enjoying the mortgage lock-in effect. the new payment to income ratio for these new buyers entering the market was about 36% when rates went up, okay? Remember the share of income thing and how you do renters? Pretty much the same way for underwriting a loan, right? A mortgage, it's about the same ratio, okay? So about 25% of the country had a mortgage below 3%, 65% below 4%. They were enjoying very, very comfortable mortgages, very cheap houses that they were already in. And their payment to income ratio was only 17%, and still is. Actually, it's a little lower than that now because incomes have risen a little bit. So all of the people, the major share of the market were the people that weren't for sale. They were the dogs not barking. The dogs barking were the ones for sale, saying, buy me, buy me, buy me. But the dogs not barking were the people saying, I'm totally comfortable, I'm not selling. No way, this deal's too good. 17%, I'm staying put. The one ingredient you must have if you want to have a real estate crash is tens of millions of distressed sellers that become tens of millions of distressed homeowners that become millions of distressed home sellers. We had the complete opposite of that, and we still have that. This was later named the mortgage lock-in effect, okay? So, you look at some of this stuff, it's just crazy what's happened. It's counterintuitive in a lot of ways, okay? Home prices are still rising even by double digits in some markets. And here is a good metaphor to look at it. Just look at it like a sink, okay? The faucet on the sink is the new listings coming onto the market. Ever since the interest rates went way up, that faucet has been at a trickle. Hardly any new inventory coming up for sale. The existing inventory is the basin of the sink, okay? What's for sale, right? Whoops, those go together, I guess. So the existing inventory is the basin of the sink, and the basin is half full. Or if you're a doomer, it's half empty. Either one, okay? And the demand is the drain. Those are the buyers pulling the inventory out of the market. And the drain is plugged up because of affordability. The buyers can't afford the houses. So the drain is not draining very well. People aren't buying that much. The sink is half full or half empty, and the faucet's at a trickle. To have a crash, the faucet would need to be on full blast, and the sink would need to be filling up. We would need to be here, and we're not there. We're not even close to that. The sink would be overflowing in a bad market. During the Great Recession, 2007, 2008, the sink was massively overflowing. Complete opposite right now. That's why there's no crash, okay? And if you look at the demand and the building deficit, we just haven't built enough homes. Coming out of the Great Recession, all of the lenders that finance developers were very scared to finance their projects. And the developers were scared to build them. And they realized they couldn't build cheap houses and make a profit. There just wasn't a big enough margin in it. So the houses they did build were more expensive houses. And that's not the market any of us probably play in, because we like cheaper houses, entry-level houses, because they make good rentals, okay? Not enough homes. What does it say? Not enough homes built. Is this the root of the housing shortage? Well, yeah, definitely. And the mortgage lock-in effect. Combine those two things. This is interesting. In the 1980s, 40% of the homes built were entry-level homes. Now only 9% fall into that category. Remember, people have only 3 choices. They can buy, and it's hard to do that. They can rent. It's easier to do that. They can be homeless. That's no fun. Now, occasionally in an audience, someone will raise their hand and, Jason, you're wrong. They can live with their parents. Okay, I know boomers, your millennial kids won't leave. They're like 42 now. Failure to launch, I get it. Okay, so this is life's most important question. Who is the gentleman who gave me the shirt this morning? I just got here, I was a little hairy. But he was wearing a shirt that says, compared to what? and he gave me one. I mean, this is really the most important question in life. Always ask yourself, no matter what you're doing, if you're choosing what to order on the menu at the restaurant, compared to what? If you're on a dating app, compared to what? Okay? If you're looking for a property to buy, compared to what? Okay? Always compare. This is what we do naturally as humans. The only way we know anything is by comparing it to something else. That's our reference point. We've got to have that benchmark and that reference point. So here's another one, right? National REO, that means real estate owned by the banks, right? Foreclosed properties. Inventory surges sharply. I better be scared, better worry. According to Adam Data, they've been on my show a bunch of times, 5,900 REO properties were recorded nationwide in December. That is a 53% jump month over month and a 92%, or 93 really, rounding properly, percent year over year. Should you be concerned? Maybe, I don't know. Bank-owned homes grew rapidly at the end of 2025. Are we in a new era of distress? Better not invest. Here's California, the biggest state in the country, the Socialist Republic of California, where I spent most of my life. I'm glad to be out. I've escaped. California has over 40 million people. And they're fucking talking about 449 properties. I mean, I don't know exactly how many actual housing units are in California, but I would guess it's about 20 million. 449. That's going to crash the market, okay? I mean, these are like nothing burgers, okay? I love that saying, nothing burger, you know? There's no patty. So here is the example, right? Here's the foreclosure starts, the people that go into foreclosure, that are starting foreclosure, right? And look at where it was. And then in the moratorium era during COVID, it was nothing, right? And now it's here. So it went up from there to there. Wow, better be worried, better not invest. Here's the completed foreclosures, the REO properties that they've actually taken back. And you see the chart. Always ask yourself, compared to what? It tells you everything. The media can say that, you know, this jump was 49% or whatever it was from there, but compared to what? I mean, this is not a great recession, okay? It's just a nothing burger. Okay, here's another one for you. So this one is about negative equity or underwater mortgages, right? We heard that one a lot during the Great Recession. And it went from here to there, okay? You see how it's going up compared to what? Zoom out. With anything in life, in order to answer the compared to what question, look, how many of you have been to a museum? Everybody, right? You've all been to a museum. When you go up and you look at a beautiful Monet painting, right? Do you do this? Yeah, let's look at, I mean, some people like to look at every brush stroke, right? You know, that's like what professionals do to see if it's authentic. But mostly, you're going to enjoy the painting if you back up 3-4 feet and zoom out. That's what you've got to do to answer the compared to what question. Now, this is the best piece of advice I can ever give you. And I did this 22 years ago. I was really lucky to have realized how important this was. You must standardize your data as an investor. You absolutely must. So I found this software that we used for many, many years. It's called Property Tracker. And remember that commercial, The Hair Club for Men? I liked it so much, I bought the company. The guy's bald and then he has hair. Yeah, it's a funny commercial from the olden days. But I actually bought this company about, 8 years ago or so, and I made it free. So go to propertytracker.com, get a free account, standardize your data so you don't have to be a detective on every deal. This is literally the best piece of advice I can give you, and it's free. So these are the assumptions we use in Property Tracker, and I'm going to zoom out. Here's what the whole pro forma looks like. You learn how to read one sheet of paper, this 1-year projection, and this will make you a fantastic investor. Now, I'm going to go through it with you, so let's zoom in. So here's the top half of it. And it shows the basics, the square footage, the purchase price, down payment, 25%, projected rent, vacancy, always have, properties are not occupied full time, ever, okay? There's always vacancies. We assume 8% or 1 month per year. I'll back up to that. 8% vacancy rate. Yes, where is it? Okay, there. And those assumptions drive all these numbers, okay? And I think they're pretty reasonable assumptions. We recommend that you self-manage your properties, but this is if you hire and pay a manager to do it. And we teach people how to self-manage remotely. So here, you're looking at all these basic indicators. The rent-to-value ratio, 0.7. 1% is ideal, but you can't get that on a quality home nowadays. It's just way out of sync. By the way, what happens in markets over time? Well, we go through this cycle where you have high appreciation when housing is very affordable and the market goes nuts. This is the COVID era, right? And many other eras. And rents always lag appreciation by a good 3 years or so. And that's the cycle we're in right now. The rents have not caught up to the appreciation. And it actually was worse this cycle than usual because of all of the new apartments that were delivered. The last couple of years, we had a record number of apartments that were delivered, but most of us are single-family home investors. Well, why does that matter? Because those apartments are offering such good deals to attract renters that they're stealing a lot of our tenants. Our would-be tenants that might do it. They'd rather have a single-family home, but the deal is too good. 4 months free rent on a 1-year lease. I mean, that's just too good a deal to pass up, so they'll just do an apartment instead. So that's the top half of the pro forma. And by the way, this is a brand new home. You can see these pro formas at jasonhartman.com in the properties section. But you can go to Property Tracker, get a free account, and do the pro forma yourself. And you can change the assumptions and change the numbers and make it dynamic. And this is really one of the key things I did to become a good investor 22 years ago, is I played with the numbers. I would just do these pro formas over and over again, and I would change the appreciation rate. I would make the rent higher or lower and see how that affects the bottom line. So let's look at the bottom line. Here's our assumptions again, but above that is our financial indicators, one of the most important parts. Now, before we get to that, I want to look at this one. So here's our expenses, here's our net operating income, mortgage payments, debt service. Our cash flow projected on this one at $288 per month. The problem with most real estate investors is they think this is the whole game. Well, why would I buy this expensive property to only get $288? Because you don't understand how to do the fucking math, okay? Sorry about the cussing, but it makes a point, right? So the math of income property is so phenomenal because it's like an iceberg. Most of the return is below the surface of the water, just like an iceberg. That's the metaphor. That's the dog that doesn't bark. It's the iceberg below the surface of the water. And so many of those return vectors that I showed you earlier, it's ideal plus inflation-induced debt destruction, are below the surface of the water. The only two that people really pay attention to are appreciation and cash flow. That's above the water. Everything else is below. So one of the things that's below, that's the most powerful wealth creator that I trademarked many years ago, I've been teaching this forever, is inflation-induced debt destruction, right here. We added this to the pro forma just recently, but it's a very simplified way. It's actually better than what the pro forma says. And I don't have time to explain all that, but I'm just going to show you the simple formula, okay? You're getting this mortgage paid off to the effect of $495 a month. That's below the surface of the water. You don't see it, okay? How do I do the math on that? Well, our inflation projection was 3%, and we all know inflation is understated. That's a long discussion. But our loan amount is $198. All we need to do is take 3% of $198, and that is $59.40 per year, divide by 12. Inflation is paying off our mortgage to the extent of $500 a month. People don't see that. You borrow at today's dollar value, you pay it back at tomorrow's lower dollar value. This is the hidden wealth creator. When I was 11 years old, my mom bought her first house. We were poor, grew up in Los Angeles. And I remember overhearing her having conversations with other adults. I don't know if I can afford this mortgage. The payment is $416 a month for a house in West Los Angeles. Okay? And all she had to do was wait 3 or 4 years, and that mortgage payment just felt lighter. It felt like nothing. She was getting pay raises, cost of living adjustments. The mortgage felt like nothing over time. And she kept that mortgage for like a couple of decades. How do you think that mortgage felt 20 years later? Nothing burger, right? That's inflation-induced debt destruction. So the overall return on this investment, very actually realistically, with realistic assumptions, is projected at 26% annually as the base ROI, and then you add inflation-induced debt destruction, which is the $495 per month, or almost $6,000 a year, and it goes to 34% annually. Now, I know some people don't know how to do this math, and some people don't understand inflation-induced debt destruction. You know, just watch my stuff on YouTube, podcast, whatever. You'll learn all about it. I have some very credible people I've interviewed where we've explained this idea in a lot of detail. But here's the thing. Let's just assume it only goes half as well as expected. Just cut the numbers in half. Okay, I'm going to make 13%, or I'm going to make 18%. Okay? I mean, or 17%, sorry, that's half of 34, right? It's still phenomenal. It's still the most historically proven asset class in the entire world. I did a video recently, which you should really watch. It's one of my best ones. It was like 2 weeks ago on YouTube, showing this over 7 years and how this return turns into 287%. And $500,000 brings you $1.4 million. Look, this is the most historically proven asset class in the entire world. All the doomers will try and talk you out of it. This is Nick that Michael always talks about. I took these screenshots exactly 2 years ago today. Isn't that funny, on Valentine's Day? Happy Valentine's Day. I hope it's very romantical, okay? My ex-girlfriend used to say, "Oh, you're so romantical," and I thought that's a cute word, you know? So 2 years ago, I took the screenshot, but look at when the video was posted 1 year earlier, okay? Look at that, right? And here's all the doom and gloom, and none of it fucking happened, okay? Now, what's the dog that doesn't bark on this doom and gloom? Even my buddy George Gammon, doom and gloom. None of it happened, okay? Look at this video. He said, you know, it says $600,000 house will be worth $150. Really? I mean, folks, this is the stuff that gets clicks. 137,000 views. That hardly ever happens to me on one of my videos, okay? I mean, I'm a loser, but at least I'm telling the truth, okay? Here's Ken, okay? You know, 31,000 views, right? And probably way more now, you know? Economic disaster. Everything's a disaster, right? Ray Dalio, another doomer, you know? I mean, it's just all over the place, right? What's it say? Housing data is getting scary, okay? 3 years ago, and so that's 5 years ago, right? Basically, right? So it's just, you know, it just never ends. These people are causing you to lose the opportunities of a lifetime. Okay, income property is not perfect. It has lots of problems, okay? Everything has lots of problems. Everything worthwhile in life is difficult. But compared to what? I mean, all of this stuff, they're just gonna talk you out of everything. And you're gonna miss it. And people have missed it over and over again. And you know what? The buyers are gone, okay? Zillow goes down by $200,000, 62,000 views, okay? You know, this is what you see in the marketplace, and these are the same people that, you know, will just, a lot of these people, frankly, I think the psychology is they just missed out themselves, and they're just jealous. I mean, you've heard the saying, misery loves company, right? Okay, so there we go. I don't have time to go through leverage. You already understand leverage pretty well, but it's phenomenal. I mean, you get incredible returns. The US is in debt. That means weaker and weaker dollar. Trump is intentionally trying to weaken the dollar, And a weak dollar means the dollar buys you less. But let me just show you one thing before I wrap up here, and I'm going to skip forward, about shorting the dollar. This is important. Okay? The government's in a mess. There are some ways they could get out of it. I don't have time to go through all of that, but here is the screen I really want you to see. You might want to take some notes on this one, because it's really good. Okay, so look, remember, inflation-induced debt destruction is the dollar goes down in value, and it destroys the purchasing power. This hurts most people. It's a terrible thing. It hurts them really bad, but it helps us as real estate investors as long as we use one of these wonderful government-subsidized mortgages. And here's why you should be excited about it. Understand inflation, the difference between real and nominal. Nominal means the name of something. If I took $1 out of my wallet and asked you, what is this? You'd say it's $1. If I took $1 out of my wallet 40 years ago, you would also say it's $1. But the value of it is much lower today because of inflation. It's the hidden tax that destroys purchasing power. It destroys the value of savings, stocks, bonds, and even equity in real estate because it's denominated in dollars. Anything that is denominated in dollars gets destroyed by inflation. And thankfully, debt, my favorite four-letter word. You thought the F word was my favorite. Okay. And it's the most powerful way to redistribute wealth. There is no more powerful way to redistribute wealth than inflation. People will complain about taxes because they notice them. Inflation is the dog not barking, just silently eroding people's lifestyle and stuff. It transfers value from lenders to borrowers and from old people to young people. Why does it do that? If I borrow money, if I borrow $1 million worth of mortgages and I buy 4 houses with them at today's dollar value, and then I move forward in time, 5 years, 10 years, the dollar value is lower and the debt is denominated in dollars. So it's worth less. I'm paying it back at a cheaper amount every day, literally. And remember that example on the pro forma, $495 a month. Inflation is just literally making you rich and you don't even know it. Okay, this is the hidden wealth creator that is so, so important. That's inflation-induced debt destruction. Learn more about it on my channel, all of that stuff. We don't have time to go through all of this. There's a very specific example. I got a bunch of other things I can teach you. My comparison index, refi till you die, risk evaluator, how to eliminate risk. That's all on my YouTube channel and podcast. So thank you very much. Happy investing.
Was that fun or what? Woo! All right, so again, folks, we got 15 minutes of Q&A with Jason, which we'll get to in a moment. We're going to do the Zoom question first. But remember, Jason is gracious enough. He's not running away, so if you can't get your question answered, he will be here, and you can meet Panda. What happened to the microphone? There it is. Okay. So again, the question, Jason, here's our first one from Zoom, and then we'll go right over here, is do you think the mortgage lock-in effect is going to have a 20 to 30-year impact tail?
That's a good question. So the mortgage lock-in effect is what keeps people from selling, right? Because they're just too comfortable. Their mortgage payment to income ratio is only 17%. That's like nothing. They've got lots of other extra spending money. They're not stressed at all. The mortgage lock-in effect is diminishing very slowly over time, and there's many articles about this, because eventually, look, what happens is and it's counterintuitive. This is one of those counterintuitive things. The higher rates go, and they got pretty high a while ago. They've been coming down, thankfully, lately. But the higher the rates go, the more valuable all of those cheap COVID-era mortgages become. You think the higher rates go, the more the market suffers. That's only new buyers. The existing homeowners that control the majority of the housing stock benefit more. Their mortgage asset literally became more valuable in a higher rate environment. If you know anything about how bonds work, this is exactly the bond market. Okay, that's exactly how it works. It's counter to the cycle. So I think it's slowly diminishing because as the delta between the new mortgage they can get and the existing mortgage they have shrinks, then people start to peel off and say, look, I know we can't get a new home at 3%, but we can get one at 6%. It's not as bad as it used to be. We got to move on with our lives. We need a bigger house, whatever. But it's a very slow process.
Anyone start with their questions?
Jason, thank you for being part of the community. We've been following you since before you're part of the community, so we're happy that we see the interaction with Michael.
Good. Thanks for following. Please like, comment, and share.
So my question is...
The algorithm will be happy. Yeah.
So my question is, in one of your commandments, say diversify.
Yes.
Invest in multiple markets.
Yep.
So that's not completely aligned with what Michael teaches.
Oh, okay.
So at what point do you recommend that you diversify?
Yeah, so we say you take the most historically proven asset class and diversify geographically. Now, understand this, that in general investing in the broader market, diversification perpetuates wealth. If you go into any, Wall Street financial planner scammer, okay, you walk into Charles Schwab, they'll say, here's a diversified portfolio, here's a pie chart, and you're going to have some international, some small cap, some large cap, some blue chip, whatever, right? Some bonds, some stocks. But that only perpetuates wealth. That just gives you a minor return on investment. Concentration creates wealth. So concentrate on the most historically proven asset class in the entire world, the most tax-favored asset class in America. But I believe you should diversify geographically because all real estate is local. So we say be in at least 3 markets, not more than 5. And I'll tell you personally, when I started doing this 22 years ago and investing nationally, my eyes were bigger than my stomach. It was just like going to a buffet when you're hungry or the grocery store when you're hungry. Not a good time to shop, right? Because you buy everything. So I bought properties in so many different markets personally. I was in 17 cities, 11 states. That was a mistake, okay? It was just too hard to keep track of. 3 to 5 markets, that's it. So I do think you should diversify geographically. So Michael and I can argue over that. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm in a market you don't like.
What's that?
I'm in a market you don't like, California.
Oh, well, yeah. It's a beautiful state. Unfortunately, the governor is a total disaster. The government, not just the governor. But yeah.
Hi, Jason. A big-time fan. My name is Owie Nicholas. I've been following you, similar to Caesar, for several years. One of my favorite quote from you is, compared to what, I actually use it with my kids. My daughter's 10, and when coming from school, she would say, Papa, I have the worst day ever. In my head, compared to what, but so.
Well, so there's a thing, like with your kids, right? So there's an old, aphorism, what is it? Once I had the blues because I had no shoes, until upon the street I saw a man who had no feet, okay, right? So, your kids will try to compare what they have to their rich friends, that might be richer than your kids, right? And they have more stuff, but compare it, take them to the poor areas and tell them to be grateful, right? Yeah.
Yes. So again, big time supporter. I know I follow you regularly, and I've liked, subscribed, and shared it. But one of the things that you mentioned, you're a big proponent of self-management.
Yes.
For properties. All my properties are under a property manager, but I am thinking of moving away from that. What instance would you think that it's still good to keep a property manager versus it's not good to self-manage? Because I understand you want to self-manage more.
Yeah, so there are maybe 10 good property managers in the country. Just kidding. It's a small number, okay? If you think the manager is good and they're not stealing from you, then keep them. But what I would say, and this has happened with our clients, just like Michael's group, I have a group called the Pro Group, Empowered Investor Pro. And every month I meet with a small group on Zoom, and we have one client, Amina, and she and her husband, Jerry, they started self-managing. They were very skeptical about it. They have properties in all these remote markets, not near them at all, right? And they've got, I think, about 20-something properties now through our group. And they love it. They started self-managing and they just keep peeling them away from their property managers. And the way I say, if you have multiple managers, just take the worst managers and peel those away and self-manage them first. And, I know people are probably very skeptical. How can you self-manage a property? Look, at my first self-management property was in San Antonio, Texas. I never saw the property. I bought it without seeing it. I never met any tenant. I never went to the property in my entire life. I bought it, sold it, owned it 16 years, self-managed by accident because the property manager retired, and I've told the story on my show many times. It worked great. I really recommend that you self-manage because then you're more of a direct investor. But even if you don't self-manage, you still own the asset. The ability for the property manager to rip you off is much more limited than a syndication promoter or a fund manager or certainly a Wall Street company. So you're still a direct investor, but I want to be as direct as possible, right? So that's why I like self-management. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Jason. I'm personally new to the...
Can you move closer to the mic?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm personally new to the community, and I was wondering, based off of your 40% of your renter's income, is there any percentages that you would consider a red flag for the income?
Yeah, don't go, you want to ideally be not higher than a third. So
okay.
33% is ideal. So if they make $10,000 a month, then the rent can't be more than $3,300. Okay, but it could be as high as $4,000. But you just know that if people are spending that much on rent, you're stretching their ability to pay you, and that's why that metric exists.
Okay.
Just like with a mortgage, they have the DTC, the debt to income ratio. Well, this is the rent to income ratio. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, Jason. I hear Charlie Munger say that he tries to consistently...
You don't hear him say that anymore.
Oh, well, true.
That's a bad joke.
Consistently try to not be stupid.
Yeah.
What are some of the common pitfalls you see for individual small investors like ourselves in those first few years getting started?
I think the hardest part is what I started with, the psychology. It's your own psychology that hurts you a lot of times, I mean, not you specifically, but you know what I mean. It's very hard to just hang tight when things aren't going that well, When you're a direct investor, you're going to feel the bumps in the road. But just remember, when you invest in a syndication or a fund or a stock on Wall Street, there's all kinds of bumps on the road happening behind the scenes that you don't even know about. There's the CEO getting sued for sexual harassment, that could hurt the company. There's the company being accused of violating someone else's patent, and they're getting sued for that. There's labor disputes, strikes. There's all kinds of problems. There's currency fluctuations that affect the company's profit. You just don't feel it. When you're a direct investor, you're going to feel the bumps in the road. So that's why it becomes more and more important to manage your own mind, to manage your own emotions. The first handwritten chart that I showed you was the investment return versus the investor return. Get the full return out of the investment by being patient and being willing to put up with problems. Okay, life is just a bunch of problems we got to solve. Okay, and real estate's no different. It's just better than everything else, So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Jason. I have one question, and that is what kind of a personal mission of mine as someone who's in the military is trying to get other people in the military to invest in real estate that I serve with.
Great mission.
And one of the, I guess, my best cash flowing property is one that was underwater and was bought at 101%, with like $1,000 down. And that's and I try to use that as an example, but it seems to be a failed example for some reason that baffles me with the VA loan. It's because I'm like, this is great. You have as much leverage, you lock it in for 30 years, and if you can do that with a quadplex, you're set. And I'm just wondering, with your experience of talking to, of just talking to the audiences and so forth, you have any recommendations on how to tweak the message for when talking to military? And I'm somebody who's in the military talking to them, and I feel like my mission's kind of failing. So I just want to know your input, or maybe a way I can tweak it or something on those.
Yeah, it's a good question, and thanks for doing that, because that's an important mission. I actually like that mission a lot. I started another podcast on it years ago called The Heroic Investing Show, which was for like military and first responders and stuff, because a lot of these people, they're getting screwed over on their pensions. I mean, certainly it's being inflated away, right, at the very least, if not a more direct problem. And what I'd say is, go to Property Tracker, create a free account, do the proformas, and teach those people about the math, because it's that iceberg. Most of the return is below the surface of the water, and we don't see it. Like, we've had a zillion clients over the years that, they'll come in and they'll say, hey, I'm going to buy 40 houses from you, and, I really want to go big on this real estate thing. I think it's the best. And then they have their first problem, and it messes up their whole plan. And that's literally a life decision. I'll tell you my first property, right? I bought my first property when I was 20 years old. And I put a tenant in the property, and they, after a few months, they stopped paying me. And I would knock on the door, and I was so young looking, they didn't care, they didn't respect me at all. And I'd ask them to pay the rent, they'd say, give me excuses. And then, they moved out finally after I started an eviction, and then they left the property in terrible condition. Now, nobody would have ever blamed me by giving up. They would have said, I can understand, you tried the real estate thing, you gave up. Man, I'm glad I didn't give up. I mean, it's just changed my whole life. So don't let little problems ruin the course of your life, okay? That's what people do. And they mostly do it because they don't know how to do the math. When you understand this return is happening, even though you don't see it right away, and just a simple example on taxes, okay? Income property is the most tax-favored asset class in America. And a lot of people will think, our investors over the years, we have thousands of clients, and they're investing, they're buying properties, and they're like, meh, this isn't that great. I'm getting a couple $100 a month on every property I buy from you. So what? Or I have this problem, I had to evict someone, whatever. But then a few months go by, and they go see their CPA, and they get their taxes done. And they realize, wow, this is much better than I thought it was. So that's just one dimension that's below the water. There are so many below the water, right? And they just got to know how to do the math and understand that a lot of stuff is happening here. Maybe make it a metaphor for our bodies, right? If we're not taking care of our bodies, there's a lot of stuff going on that doesn't manifest until later. Right? We can eat bad, and I happen to love muffins, okay? I love bakery items, okay? Every morning I eat them. I want to eat 3 more. And, that doesn't show up till later, whether our healthy habits or our bad habits show up later. And it's the same thing with the properties. It's a very slow process,
You ever think of a short answer?
Yeah, no.
Yes, no, maybe so.
Okay. So what was the yes? Or did that answer your question?
Okay. And he's here all day, so you can get him. Last question.
Hi, I just got a question. I know you talk a lot about psychology and mentality of kind of being in the landlord game. I was just wondering, how do you feel like part of it is success, or is it just imposter syndrome, or just I'm doing this and I'm successful at it, but is it because I'm lucky, I'm good at what I'm doing? I became an accidental landlord, and it's one of those situations where I'm seeing the fruits of my labor. I'm in the suck phase right now, but I'm profitable. And is it?
So what's the question? Distill it to a question.
How do you deal with the mentality of maybe imposter syndrome, or you're just dealing with? How do you deal with success?
I don't know if I'm the best person to ask that question. My dog's untying my shoes. It's just let this asset class create wealth for you over the years, and you will be a very, very happy person. I mean, that's all I can say. You're not an imposter if you're doing the thing. I mean, the imposter is the person who's like, showing off and, I mean, talk about the massive imposter syndrome, okay? All the influencer world is imposters galore. And do you know they have, in Los Angeles, a place where you can rent a fake, like, movie set inside of a private jet, and imposters, influencers, go in there and film videos like they're on their private jet to show everybody, like, look, I'm so rich, you should follow me, right? And those are the imposters. You're not an imposter. You're really doing it, okay? It's not glamorous, but you just let some time go by, and it's amazing. Okay, so I hope that helps, okay? All right.
Fun, right? All right, Jason, we have something. You've been doing this a long time. You've been doing this 3 decades or so. I don't know, have you ever received a championship belt?
Not like this one, thank you. This is very cool.
Get your cameras ready. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a real deal, man. That shit ain't cheap. Can I take this on the plane? That ain't my problem. Ship it. Yeah, so again, remember folks, there's lots of belts in this room. Lots of people have earned them. Take pictures, tag people, get motivated, do the work. Jason, you're amazing. Thank you for your support.
Thanks, buddy.
You got it. All right, you can raise the screen. You can raise the screen. Hey, right. So first and foremost, we talked earlier about these purple houses. If you have not gotten them, please get them. We have 400 or so, which means everybody should get at least one. Josh wanted to come up and say a couple of words, so we were going to give him the mic. Oh.
I got something new. All right. All right, so I'm the one that made all the little houses. Hopefully everybody gets a chance to get one. So you're very welcome. But I also, along with the houses for all of you, I made that. But it's kind of on behalf of what I know you guys would like too. Yep, so it's on behalf of ORAT, but I made it.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. You guys are amazing. This is going on my shelf.
He's got the big house. Yeah, it says do the work on one side. It says instead of everyday wealth builder, it says everyday wealth teacher on the side. So, all right. It's pretty cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
All right. So just before we bring up the millionaires, which is always a fun time for me, again, that's going to be Adrian, Ty, Beth, and Casey, just so I can give them a 2-minute warning. Do you guys remember about how I lost $200,000? You guys remember that video from the last week or so? Insurance? Remember that one? Don't be stupid like me. Or lazy, or whatever. Steadily has graciously enough agreed to come out. They're actually in the lobby. They are prepared to do quotes, which I can't believe they brought out resources to do that. So again, folks, they will be here all day. They are one of the sponsors of the event, so we'll talk about that later. But as somebody who has saved over $20,000, 20 grand, 20, just by giving them a chance. And let's be clear, they're not the best every time, but you don't know if you don't ask. It's our job today. Insurance is up everywhere, so you're a fool, and I mean that as kindly as I can, kind of a kick in the pants, if you don't go at least and get a quote. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. They're about 60, 65% hit rate, so not every time. So again, Steadily is in the lobby, and again, they brought an insurance broker who is licensed to give quotes, which was extra, and it's Valentine's Day, and it's a Saturday, and he's probably like, how did I get the short straw? So make sure you go say hi to them. That would be great. So let's bring up our millionaires, Casey, Beth, Adrian, and Ty. We only got one belt between the 4 of you? I guess I forgot to tell you. My bad. I didn't, my bad. So, come upstairs. So again, one of the things I do when I try to put together this event is obviously deliver content for you guys, the audience, the agenda, the Rubik's Cube. But it's also important for me to give the folks time in the sun who show up every week, right? We are Tuesday at 9:30, Tuesday at 10, Friday at 8, and Wednesday at 9. These guys come on each and every week, at least most weeks, 50 weeks out of the year. Let's give them some love, give some shares. And then what I'm going to do, because I always go ladies first, so I'll go to my right, Casey. Just assume they don't know who you are. Give your quick 60-second, 90-second bio. And then again, folks, line your butt up, because we don't have presentations. If you don't get a chance to ask these people questions, shame on you. Line up. We're going to do at least 30 minutes of Q&A. But here you go, Casey.
Thanks, Michael. Isn't he great? I love Michael. Okay, my name is Casey Frankini, Brick by Brick Wealth. That's my YouTube channel, and I'm so close to 12,000 subs by one. So maybe I hit it while I'm walking up here, but you guys need to go on your YouTube and subscribe to me. Anyway, so my name is Casey. I am 43 years old and married with 3 children. And I grew up in California, moved to Memphis, and we invest in long-term rental properties. My husband, Blake, I don't know where he is. Where is he? Just so I can look that way for a photo op. There you go. Hi. Great, thanks. We invest in long-term rental properties. We currently have 9. We just buy 1 property a year. We do it the boring, slow, steady way where we use our own money and we don't cash out refinance, and we keep all the cash flow and we manage all of our properties. And this year, 2026, marks a decade of me being a landlord. So I'm excited for that, a decade investing. So I also teach new investors all across the country how to get started with their first rental property. So if you are new with real estate investing, you can ask me questions on that. I also help teach people how to invest out of state. Also, all landlording questions welcome. So if you have anything along that lines, I'm your gal.
Hi there, I'm Beth Traverso. So I've been investing in real estate for about 25-ish years or so, really just the one rental at a time way. And about the same time I got my real estate license too, not exactly the same. So I've been selling real estate for 28 years, and I have a high-producing small team. I'm operating in the greater Seattle area mostly. And so if anybody has questions about the real estate agent side of it or the investing side of it, I've been doing both for a long time. Investing is my favorite part. And that's about it. So I look forward to chatting with all of you.
Can you imagine I'm walking through the airport with this belt and getting on the plane, TSA, all of it, right? So my name is Ty Leon Guerrero. I go by TYLG. Basically bought my first deal in 1993, the late 1900s as we call it. And basically started off very much, I love when we met Michael, Adrian and I were at a conference just like this. The people you're sitting next to are, the next ones coming up, all of you. It's about you here in the audience. But Adrian and I met Michael probably like 2018 or 19, 17, something like that. 2018, and realized this guy's really sharp. We need to stick as close as we can to him. And let's figure out a way for me, and I know also Adrian will tell his own story, but we were like, man, let's figure out a way let's get something going with him, a podcast, get on, do JV with him. So in terms of what I actually do, I buy long-term, buy and hold. I've bought a lot of properties. I've lost properties in 2008. I can tell you about that and share any kind of like wisdom. I love what Cody shared so much so about cleaning up your portfolio, staying away from the vanity metrics of I have X amount of doors and all of that, like how much peace of mind do you have? That's what I love about what Michael teaches. And I'm also a real estate broker. So I do brokerage, I flip, a lot of wholesaling. And so basically I'd say my niche is that I do basically a hybrid. I'm a real estate broker, I do regular listings, I represented some one rental at a time community members, and then also do my own stuff. So, thank you.
Super cool. I'm curious to know, how many of you guys were at the Fresno event? Right on. Give yourself a round of applause. How freaking cool is that, right? Round of applause. And then give yourself a round of applause for being in the room today, right? Give yourself a round of applause for showing up. And you guys, Zuber has created the best community, hands down, in the real estate industry. Do you guys agree with that? Let's get a huge round of applause on that one. No egos, no fluff, so really just wanted to give kudos to you and kudos to Zuber for this awesome community. As Ty mentioned, we met Zuber in 2018 at a meetup very similar to this, and then we went to the Fresno event, and it's cool to see how this has grown. And then for all of you to show up on this weekend is huge, so give yourself a big kudos to that. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I'm from Southern California. Started off as a real estate agent, very young, 19 years old. It's when I met Ty, Joe D, a lot of the guys you'll get to meet. They helped build me. So thank you. Yeah. But long story short, started off as an agent, then owned a brokerage, got into fix and flip in 2015, lost $1 million by going out of state. So I could talk about that. And then now I own a wholesale company. This year we'll do 200 deals in Southern California. My home sold, if you've ever seen us, specifically Southern California.
All right, so when you're up at the mic, and we only have 3 people, you guys are missing out. These are legends up here. They come back to support the community. Do me a favor, when you are about to ask your question, at least say who you want to answer first. And then if we have...
for everybody. That's for everybody.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But again, the people behind you, if you have a question for one of these all-stars, if you let us know that, others may chime in, but let's start with that. Go ahead, Chester.
All right. Well, again, thank you all, as always, for coming. Casey, I guess we'll start with you, and then just, however we go, left to right or whatever. You pick acquisition, operations, maintenance, disposal, whatever phase. What was the most difficult property that you've ever had to deal with, and how did you deal with it?
Wow. I would say less difficult property, more difficult tenants. And I think that's what distinguishes being an investor, that it's easy to be an investor, or takes up all your time versus doesn't take up all your time. So at first, the first property that we bought it in a B-class neighborhood. We wanted something for sure, something that was going to be we could see ourselves living here, and we don't want to make a mistake, and we bought something mostly rent-ready. And then, you get on social media and you're like, oh, well, I should have bought something cheaper. I should have put less money into the deal. So then we went into a C-class neighborhood, and we bought a couple C-class properties, and that was my mistake. Not that there's anything wrong with C-class, but I am, all about B-class neighborhoods. I want tenants that make 6 figures, that take care of my property and have Pottery Barn furniture, and I don't talk to them all year. I don't want to do any work. I don't want to be a full-time investor. I want to be a full-time mom, and I want investing to just be my income without having to do a lot of work for it. So, yeah, thanks. So when we got this property, this was our second or third one in a C-class area, and we did not, I was doing it, my husband did all the renovations, we together. I say we, but really it's he, you know how that goes. We did it. No, he did it. I did lawn work. But anyways, poor guy. He did all these renovations out of the back of his Nissan Altima for many years, so he finally got his F-150 a few years ago, so we're happy for that. Finally deserved that. But anyways, I didn't do background checks. I put in a tenant that was not qualified. She dragged me along for 5 years. I just kicked the can down the road with her. It was late payment, breaking the lease agreement, bringing in pit bulls having babies, unauthorized people on the lease with the same name as her. It goes on and on. This was my tenant nightmare story. And it was because, there's this old guy investor in my investor group in Memphis. And he said, and this is a good quote, he said, your properties will look like your tenants, and your tenants will look like your properties. And I'm like, that's good. That's good. So from then on, and I'll say, my property was pretty nice before she trashed it, okay? backed into the garage door with her car when she was drunk. We put in a really nice glass security door the week she moved in. That was a mistake. Kid hit it with a basketball, she said, broke that. She caused $16,000 worth of damage when she finally moved out when I evicted her. She did leave. We didn't have to go through the eviction, but when she found out that I filed on her, I was at the beach in California visiting my sister, and I had my head under a beach towel because of the, you know how noisy it is at the beach, talking to my lawyer on the phone, like, how do I get this lady out of my house? Because she just found out that I filed eviction on her, and I didn't serve her yet, so I didn't know she was going to know. And anyway, she left. It was a mess. She left two or four, I forget, pit bulls behind, totally emaciated. Left them there, and my mother-in-law, this 60-year-old woman with this like really expensive car, driving to this neighborhood. I'm like, we're in California, can you please see if they left? It was a nightmare. So really, that was a really short story, but what I mean to say with that is, it's not necessarily properties that are problems, because numbers are numbers. You know if you're gonna buy a good deal or a bad deal. If you don't know the answer before you buy the property, you shouldn't have bought it. You need to know up front. There should be no surprises when it comes to what you're buying. But my mistake was not doing proper tenant screening, buying in a neighborhood that probably wasn't going to give me the best quality of tenants, and then not screening, putting in bad tenants, not being the boss that I should have been, not following my lease agreement, letting her stay. My first gray hair came from her, not my kids. I have a lot more gray hairs now. That's probably from my kids. But I would just say that to me, it was tenants. That was kind of my struggle. And once I nailed that down, it's smooth sailing now, and I would rather, you all know the saying, I'd rather have no tenant than a bad tenant. Absolutely, yeah.
So I love Casey's answer about it's not the property that it's a nightmare, it's the tenant typically that makes it a nightmare. And I have stories as far as like squatters, floods, things like that. But the one that I'll talk about to answer the question is so I'm in King County, Washington, Seattle area. We had a COVID eviction moratorium. Couldn't evict people for the longest time, no matter what. We had some tenants that had jobs. They could have paid the rent, but just why would they if they don't have to, and nothing bad will happen? So, thankfully that's why we have reserves and plans, and, it didn't destroy us, but it definitely was very much a thorn in our side for years. Eventually that let up, but the only way we could get rid of these tenants was to move in, which I didn't want to do, or sell. So we just gave the 90-day notice to sell, and had the attorney serve the paperwork, and got them on their way, and then we did a 1031, and the silver lining is we bought 3 other properties in I think a better market that are doing well for us, and we ended up making a lot of money from that. So that's how even the bad stories can turn into good ones.
Bad stories. So I would say stay in your lane. Like, I've had tons of success in single family rentals, small 2 to 4 unit stuff, and that I know that market. I sell that. I wholesale that. I know that market inside and out. And where I would say a bad deal, really several bad deals, but getting into like land development and thinking like, oh, well, I'm pretty good at this, so I need to do the next thing, right? And so got a little bored with single families and got into a bunch of land development, borrowed, leveraged, private money and all that, and it was just a real disaster, really bad timing. Learned a lot, but the big thing is learn, for me, to stay in my lane. So that's what I would say there. And then anybody in California that landlording or planning to landlord real high? Okay, so I'm in California also. I'm in Contra Costa, Solano County, Alameda, a little bit of Sacramento, San Joaquin. But the big mistake I see for landlords in California specifically is we have a statewide rent control. And just talking to so many landlords, if you don't keep up and increase your rents, you're gonna fall so far behind. It's very common that I'm talking to landlords where we're buying the deal for 50, 60, 70 cents on the dollar, and it's only because a lot of deferred maintenance, which is normal, but also because it comes with a tenant, and the tenant's paying 50% of market. Market rent might be $2,500 a month, and they've got somebody in there at $1,000, $950, $1,300, and you can never take that tenant to fair market rent in California. And it doesn't matter what county, California-wide, the rent control layers, the only way you can get that property at a fair market, I mean, there's a bunch of loopholes that you move into it or have to do a bunch of renovations and such, but there's so many layers that it just devalues the asset. And so that's an opportunity to buy, but also I would say just be really careful if you're going to landlord in California, make sure you've got a plan to increase your rents every single year so that you don't fall behind and devalue your asset.
So good.
So mine, very similar to staying in your lane. Mine's don't follow the hype. There's a lot of hype in real estate. So, was it be 3-4 years ago? Everybody started going out of state. You guys remember when everybody started buying everything out of state, started flipping out of state? So I'm in Southern California, and the hype was Phoenix. Hype was Phoenix is taking off. You got to go to Phoenix, right? So, all right, let's go. We bought 3 deals in Phoenix. Bought 3 deals in Phoenix, get a contractor out there, and this is poor due diligence on my part. I didn't screen the contractor the way I should, right? I didn't get someone was up here earlier, talked about 3 bids. I didn't get 3 bids, right? Found a guy that was referred to me, over-trusted him, gave him a total of $1 million. We had $1 million out on 3 houses. Still can't find the guy till this day. Vanished, gone. Multiple judgments, I probably spent $50K in additional lawsuit fees trying to find the guy. Gone. So good thing, blessing, was able to clear all the properties, able to get out of them, right? However, biggest learning lesson was screen everything. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. And don't chase the hype. Stick, like Ty's saying, stick to your lane, right? So after that, I'm like, what am I good at? I'm good at wholesale and direct to seller. Let's stay there, right? There's no need to go out of state. There's a great quote. You're standing in your own acre of diamonds. Same, right? You have plenty of deals in your backyard. There's no need to go somewhere where you can't comp and that you can't keep eyes on. So that was my biggest lesson.
Hello, Michael, thank you for organizing this. Just a question, like just getting into this, I've been in for about 3 years and want to continue to grow, but my question is about managing risk. Jason talked about the numbers, and when you look at the numbers, it is harder today. And I am in California, so I'm always considering what happens if I don't have income for 6 months on a house because I'm dealing with a messy situation. And I don't let fear direct my decision making, but I'm also prudent. So, like, how do you continue to grow your investments while managing that risk at the same time prudently?
All right, great question. And it's something that I think a lot of people have a lot of fear about. First of all, there's very few situations where you won't get income for 6 months. I mean, that example I used for the eviction moratorium was one of those situations. However, there's a couple ways you can avoid that or bring that risk down dramatically. The first is if you screen and place your tenants right, it's highly unlikely you're ever going to have that situation. The other is you got to have money set in reserves for that situation. I don't think anybody should be doing that. I mean, Cody did it with $1.25 wherever he went, but we're not all Cody. Okay, so I was there. So I would say, So I would say have reserves, and if you're just getting started, work on building your reserves. Earmark us. Very few people start out with the ample reserves, but you can just dedicate a certain amount of your cash flow to those reserves. And if you screen those tenants right, every bad tenant I ever had, there were warning signs that I chose to ignore for whatever reason. So listen to your gut on that, and that should do a lot to keep your risk down.
Everything Beth said, plus I would say just something like Adrian and I, I've grounded my foundation in being a better buyer, meaning that just being better at finding deals. So finding off-market deals, buying better, meaning that, and I say this, that this isn't you specific, but I'll use the word you. You're gonna look at a deal and you're gonna see, let's say, $500,000 neighborhoods. Well, in that, maybe you think 450 or 425 is a good deal, good enough, and you kind of can make it pencil. For me, I'm looking at that deal and I want to buy it at 295 or 350, and maybe not the same deal, but in the same neighborhood, the same kind of rent money, all of that. And or even maybe I'm going to buy it again because I feel like I'm better at putting a deal together. I'm going to buy it creatively, right? I'll buy it seller financing with very low or no interest or something, or some kind of payment structure that allows me to buy it better. So I think for everybody here, that's why I love too with Michael and the discipline is that, and even Cody said it earlier too, about the buy box. If you don't really have a buy box, I saw so many people over the last 5 years get in trouble because they wildcat around. They're buying something in Florida, and then they're buying in Texas, and then they're buying in Carolina, and then they're doing Airbnb, and now they're doing co-living, and now they just kind of jump around, and it's because they're not locked in on a buy box. And I think what Michael says, the discipline of, I know what I'm buying, I know the neighborhoods, I know the price ranges, and now I know, okay, if that's a $500,000 neighborhood or area, I know for me, I've got to be able to buy it at 300, 350, or I'm buying it on terms, on really good terms. So hopefully that helps.
Yep.
We're going to try to get through a couple questions. How are we on time? We got like 10 minutes, a little bit less.
Thanks for answering questions. I actually have 6 questions, so I'm going to have to prioritize and
Yes, no, go ahead.
yeah, I'll have to track you guys down. Okay, here's a yes, no. Is it legal to move in if you've offered cash for move, you've got a lawyer, the hoarders will not leave? That's a quickie.
Yes.
It's legal in California?
Get an attorney to write the right agreement, yes.
Okay, all right.
Start with ChatGPT and then have an attorney finalize it.
Okay, thank you. And the other question is, our last name, my husband and I, our last name is Rapp, R-A-P-P, and so we have the contract for the rentals. We have 3 different rentals and 2 apartments and 1 single home, single family home. But are the Rapp, we call them the Rapp rules, are those legal? As a separate document that they sign saying, we agree to not have open fires under your avocado tree that's 60 years old, that kind of thing.
You're talking about like just covenants? Yeah, absolutely. If they sign to it, then that's an agreement, yes.
Okay, and we'd really like to buy another investment property, but what's your tipping point? Like, you have to have 50% of the property value, you have to have all the down payment. How do you decide?
I would say go back into school and Michael's course and really get clear about buy box and then how to underwrite a deal. And it has to be the cash on cash return that works for you. Everybody's going to be a little different.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll track you down.
Let's do it. We'll do it.
We're going to
At
make
break,
Cody's
at lunch.
question last. I'm sorry. Cody's question. Oh, Cody's wife's. Okay, we'll do 3.
All right. In 3 sentences or less, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Good luck on that, Mike.
I would say surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do and listen to those people who are walking the walk and living the life. And work on your mindset so that you believe it's possible, especially with all the negativity going on out there these days. There's this overwhelming belief among a lot of, teenagers, and back in the late 1900s or whatever, it was the same way. Some things never change, right? But believe it's possible. Surround yourself with people who are doing it. Take practical steps to flesh out your dream and your goals step by step, kind of like what you talked about in your lecture.
Be patient. Stay married.
Well, I think I was going to college, so let's pretend I was after college. I would probably tell myself to take bigger risk, because when you're young, you think this is all the money that I have, or I don't have a lot of time until I'm old, and you think time's going to go by. I thought time was going to go fast, but I didn't take enough risk, and I think that people underplay or they underestimate. What am I trying to say? You can take a lot of risk when you're young, with time, with things you want to do. I started off as a real estate agent out of college after my job failed for 3 months. Well, it was a long story, but we only have 3 sentences, and I'm already over that. But the bottom line is, I was a real estate agent when I started out in my real career a long time ago, and I should have taken bigger risks. I was an agent in California, and I helped real estate investors find flips and short sales and foreclosures during the market crash, and I should have done more of that instead of trying to play it safe. So if you're young, I would say to young people, take bigger risks, bet on yourself more, and listen to your parents.
I'm going to say learn more. If I was talking to my 18-year-old self, learn more, go harder, be humble, and quit being a little bitch.
Hey guys, I'm Travis from California. I'm a new agent. Hey guys, Travis from California here. I'm a new agent. And so I guess for Ty First, we share some of the same communities. But for the agents in general, I guess kind of a two-part question is one for a new agent, somebody building their business, trying to allocate time and resources. I mean, I'm an investor first, came from that side with learning to do stuff on terms, but trying to balance acquiring new assets and properties and pouring that into the business of serving investors as an agent. But then on the other side is just as a new agent serving investors, you guys are all here helping the community, giving the value. Any real key points for how to relay that to our clients and turning that into business?
So if I'm hearing you right, so as a new agent, you want to know how to build your agent business and your investing business, and maybe how to blend the two, because you're looking to work with, and as an agent, we're looking to work with investors.
Yeah, correct.
So you need to find your community of mentors, of people who are doing that. And so they're two very different fields, really. So like real estate sales is, for me, I do both, but my real estate sales doesn't cross over too much into the investing side of things. So I have my community for each. In your situation, if you're looking to do both, there are groups. There are, like in our area, it's the WARI, Washington Real Estate Investors. Like that's a great place to learn and network about people who are doing investing in our area, who are also, there's agents in there too. So treat your business like a business is one of the main things I would say. If you build it as a business with a business plan and specific metrics and goals from the beginning, you'll be way ahead of most. And I don't want to hog the mic too much, so pass it on.
Be your best client. And what I would say is they're cherry pick. Like you're going to have the deals that make a lot of sense for you. And of course, they always have to make a lot of sense for the seller, the client, whoever it is on the other end of the transaction, win-win transaction. But they're going to be deals that are going to be really ugly and messy and, they're going to be funky. And those are the ones that, hey, have you ever considered, and you talk about seller financing or creative financing, and that those are the ones you buy. But I would say be your best client. Those best deals, those are the ones you should buy. So
Get really good at direct to seller. Get really good at finding off-market de-stressed houses, because now you're the one, to Ty's point, now you can cherry pick them. What a lot of real estate agents go wrong, I believe, is they go straight to working with like high-end listings, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But they go straight to listings. Let's figure out how to get off-market deals. Let's figure out how to get a hold of the pre-foreclosures, the probates, the NODs, because that's where the good deals are at, right? All the other stuff, the luxury stuff will come. Get good at this stuff. I think a lot of agents have it backwards.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to take a question from Zoom because I forgot to do that first. So basically the question is, tell me how you got through the first 5 years of suck. You were pinching pennies, you were sacrificing. Basically, go back and remember that, and any advice you have to somebody that's there.
Go hard, side hustles. I had a W-2. I had a landscape business, and I was getting my real estate license, and I was working every free minute, and, just really all in on that. I wasn't doing social stuff for probably 2 or 3 years. Didn't go on vacations, didn't party. Pretty much. I mean, that's go all in on your business.
Big vote for house hacking. Multiple house hacks, if you can do that. That's a great way to get through those first 5 years, which go a lot faster than you think.
Our first 5 years was a lot of suck because I was a stay-at-home mom. My husband had the only income. We were raising 3 kids, and we were watching all of our neighbors go to Disney World and spend $10,000 on vacations and buy brand new cars and have people come renovate their home. And we lived with an outdated 1950s kitchen for 8 years because every single year I said, what's gonna make me money? Spending 30 grand on redoing my kitchen or 30 grand on a down payment for a new rental? So it's sacrifice and you just gotta do it.
Pretty good, right? All right, so you guys would probably not know this, but one of the hardest things to do putting on an event like this, other than the agenda, that's really the hardest thing, you make sure the agenda rocks, is finding gifts for people who keep coming back to support you. So if you're here for the first time and you're speaking or I'm thanking you, you get a championship belt. You've seen a couple of those today, yes? What I did for year 2 is I gave out championship rings. Year 3, we have our first examples. You guys can go ahead and open those. There's 4 latches, 2 in the front, 2 on the side, except other than maybe Casey's and Beth, it's just 2. But they each got custom, and I'll let them bring them out, so it's a surprise. Nailed it! Very cool. Thank you very much for all your support. Yes, yes. And the beauty of it is I didn't have to think about any of that. I just connected them with their creator, who you'll meet later, and they did all the work. I just paid for it, so it was the easy part. So awesome. Well, thank you for coming 3 years in a row. This is Valentine's Day, and you guys still said yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. How are you going to get them home? There you go. Yeah, that's keep the box. Dude, I bought that. That's like $80, that freaking black thing. Damn, I'm not cheap. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very, very cool. All right, so yeah, mom's up there, right there in the middle at the top. That's my mom, everybody. Woo! Hi, Dorothy. All right, so somebody reached out to me and said, hey, I would love to deliver a personal message. Somebody's been on that channel a lot. He'll be back tomorrow. But Matt, the mortgage guy, wanted to say a few words.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I got some news for you. The market doesn't care how confident you felt in 2021. And neither does life. My message today, funny enough, I reached out to Mike and I said, I want to talk about resilience. I didn't know Hartman and Jared and everyone else was going to talk about resilience too, but talking to hundreds of you and talking to thousands of investors, there's a lot of things to learn in real estate. There's a lot of important stuff. I think resilience is right up there at the top. So I'm going to share some personal stories. Hopefully I don't get emotional. I'm an emotional guy. Because I learned resilience early. And as investors, every single investor, from Zuber to Hartman, anybody who's done anything, you're going to encounter storms. It's not a matter of if, but when. And my first storm was at 16 when I left home. And I didn't leave home because I was a super sharp kid that had life figured out. I left home because it was chaotic. And somehow managed to finish high school. I even managed to get a college degree, and things were going good. And this is real estate and life both, right? You'll have good times where things are going good, and then you'll hit a storm. Got married to my beautiful wife, had my first son. Old demon showed up, and I battled addiction. And in 2011, my story could have ended, you know? And if they wrote